even criticise any element of the immigration policies of the last two governments, you're racist. And yet the Home Secretary, Shubham Mahmood, tries to copy our policies.
Patriotism, a force for good, is turning into something smaller, something more like ethno-nationalism, which struggles to accept that someone who looks like me and has a faith like mine can truly be English or British.
Britain is being invaded. Thousands of fighting-age men from countries that despise Britain continue to arrive on our beaches. Our plan is the only appropriate response to a national security emergency. Immediate removal. Deportation is the ultimate deterrent.
Our flags flying proudly as we celebrate difference and oppose racism.
Labour says these policies are racist and immoral, and by implication, Reform supporters, Reform voters, Reform sympathisers are racist too. Yes, if you think we should control our borders, you are, by the definition of the Prime Minister and his cabinet, all racists.
We can all see that the country faces a choice, a defining choice. Britain stands at a fork in the road. We can choose decency, or we can choose division, renewal or decline.
To accuse countless millions of being racist is a very, very low blow. Why? Well, this language will incite and encourage the radical left. I'm thinking of Antifa and other organisations like that. It directly threatens the safety of our elected officials and our campaigners. And frankly, in the wake of the Charlie Kirk murder, I think this is an absolute disgrace.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning and welcome to Morning Glory, 3 minutes past 6. I'm Mike Graham. This is, of course, the home of Common Sense. It's Wednesday, the 8th of October, and have we got some news for you? Coming up this morning, we've got Theo Usherwood here with us, and he's going to be telling us what's going on in the newspapers. Lots and lots of different sort of headlines this morning. There's no one particular theme. But the Prime Minister, of course, is off in India. He's taken a load of business people with him, and he's apparently going to India to forge some new trade deals. Sorry, excuse me for asking, Prime Minister, but I thought we already had a trade deal with India. I don't know quite why he's going there. And also, can I just ask a question? Did anybody see him out and about yesterday on October the 7th, the second anniversary of that horrific, ghastly terrorist attack on Israel by Hamas, the thing that started this ghastly 2-year war, which has been going on in Gaza, where thousands of people have been killed, you know, terrible things have happened, and it has kind of, you know, fractured the world, if you like, for all sorts of different reasons, which we won't get into right now, but we will get into later. But did anybody see Keir Starmer at any kind of vigil? Was he at any kind of, you know, commemoration ceremony? Did he light a candle for any of the Jewish victims? Did he light a candle for any of the Israeli hostages that were taken, some of whom were, of course, British? I didn't see it, and maybe I'm wrong, and maybe I should be castigated for bringing it up, but I'd like to know if anybody saw him doing anything which was in any way commemorative for the dead people killed by Hamas on October the 7th, 2023, or indeed whether he was lighting a candle or getting involved in any kind of vigil for the release of the hostages, because I think he should have done that, shouldn't he? 0344 499 1000, front page of the Times and some other papers as well, all about this China spying case. Ministers refused to help China spying prosecutors. Repeated requests for evidence of security threats were unanswered, says the head of the CPS. And the CPS apparently are are asking for some kind of judicial review on this China spying case. They're saying, basically, you know, we would like to reopen it, and we don't like the fact that the case seems to have collapsed because the government didn't want to call the Chinese the enemy. Front page of the Telegraph again, CPS number 10 to blame for the collapse of the spy trial. The Daily Mail, I think, also goes with that. China given a free pass to spy on Britain. Well, I mean, I don't think anybody would be surprised at that, but it does seem extraordinary that while we are trying so hard to supposedly prop up all sorts of, you know, defence spending in this country, we're kind of allowing China to pretty much do whatever it is that they want. The Director of Public Prosecution, Stephen Parkinson, according to the Mail, has revealed that the case collapsed just as it was about to go to trial after government advisers refused, despite being pressed for more than a year, to declare that China represented an active threat. So I think we know which side their bread is buttered on. Front page of The Guardian goes with a story that we talked about yesterday about Robert Jenrick. You might remember they released a sort of a clipping, if you like, of him speaking about how he'd gone to Birmingham and not seen any white faces. They're saying Jenrick's accused of fueling toxic nationalism. Guess who's accusing him of that? That absolute and utter wally, David Lammy, the Deputy Prime Minister and Justice Secretary, and also Zach Polanski, the Green Party leader, who used to spend his time making money from telling women that if he could hypnotise them, he could make their breasts bigger. Why are we even taking this bloke seriously? Absolutely incredible. Anyway, Theo Usherwood's here. Very good morning to you.
Great to be
Front
with you.
page of The Sun has gone with this ka-ching story, which I must confess I don't really understand. And apparently millions of drivers who unwittingly paid commission on dodgy car deals can each claim back an average of £700, according to the financial watchdog. So that's good news, I guess, if you're going to be able to do that. But if you are going to be able to do it, do let us know how to do it, because I'm not sure. I mean, I don't even know if I'm, you know, liable for this. Have you any idea? Have you bought a car with dodgy financing?
No, I've generally bought my cars outright.
Oh, okay.
So I think it's if you buy on a leasehold agreement or whatever. And there's a commission that's paid.
Okay.
Between the
because I mean I
car
tend to
and the
lease
lender.
cars. I bought one, the current car I've got.
You
I
should
bought,
check it out.
But I've tended to lease them in the past. I keep getting phone calls from people in India going, you know, we can reclaim some money for you on the diesel recompensation scheme or something. I'm like, get lost. Stop calling me.
I think you should. This one might be. This one might be.
Okay.
For you, Mike.
700 quid.
700 quid, not to be sniffed at.
Decent lunch.
It's not actually.
Or two. Sorry.
So yeah, no, for you, and I imagine many people tuning in today. You know, 700 quid, not to be sniffed at. You have to obviously make the claim.
Oh, look,
the
listen,
money's
in this
set
day and
aside.
age, I would promise you, anything coming in the other way is actually welcome, you know, because so much is going out. You know, people. We did a story the other day. Somebody sent it to me on Twitter. That Marks and Spencer's have got a turkey that they're selling, which comes with, you know, the giblets, not all the trimmings, by the way. 150 quid. I'm not joking. £150. For a turkey.
£150 for a turkey?
For a turkey.
Fresh turkey or frozen?
Fresh turkey, sort of hand-raised, you know, very organic, and apparently, you know, beautifully, you know, put together and wrapped, lovely, you know, prepared in great, but nothing extra apart from some giblets that you would, you know, obviously make gravy from.
But turkey's cheap.
Well,
turkeys are cheap.
You say that.
Cheap, like... It's not an expensive meat. 150 quid.
150 quid. Marks and Spencer's top of the range organic turkey for Christmas. I was in Selfridges yesterday, right? This Christmas shop is open.
Yeah.
They've got Christmas trees up.
Biggest rip-off in Selfridges.
Right. What is the biggest rip-off?
I don't know what you were going to tell me.
No, I wasn't going to say. No, I know. I fell upon. I had to go into the basement to find something, and and there's the Christmas shop, and there's the wine section where they had some of the biggest bottles of wine you've ever seen, and they had a giant bottle of Whispering Angel, which I quite like. It's about 600 quid or something. I mean, it's ridiculous. I don't know who's buying this stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so big you couldn't even carry it home. Yeah.
Sort of Jeroboam.
Yeah, Jeroboam.
I always thought Whispering. It's a rosé, isn't it? My wife likes it.
Yeah.
All used to like it.
Yeah.
And it's
a bit overpriced, to be fair. It's about 20 quid a bottle, generally speaking. But I mean, these are like, you know, sort of 6 bottles worth in one bottle.
Right.
You know, how do you get that in the fridge? Once you've got your £150 turkey. Anyway, sorry to start off on
one of those chest fridges.
On that note, yeah, absolutely right. Let's go with Keir Starmer this morning, because he's on his way. Well, he's in India now. He's taken a load of business people with him. He actually did this on the way out there on a plane. Have a look.
This is the Prime Minister. I'm in the cockpit, and a very warm welcome to BA Flight 9100 to Mumbai. It's really fantastic to have you all on board. This is the biggest trade mission to India that the UK has ever sent. So I'm much looking forward to working with you as we explore all of the opportunities and take full advantage of the opportunities in our new free trade agreement. So safe flight, everybody. Enjoy the flight, and I'll give you further information once I've taken off. Thank you.
Excellent. Fantastic. A natural. Did you say when I'm taking off?
Yes.
It's just so weird, isn't he? And they say he's a natural. He's not a natural at all. He's telling people to have a safe flight. What? He's in the cockpit?
I think he could give up his day job.
What, to become a pilot?
To become or just an announcer.
If Keir Starmer was flying your plane, I think I'd get off. I'd be like, sorry, I don't want to fly with this bloke.
Stop.
You know, he's so accident prone, I'm frightened the plane might crash.
Yeah, he's on his trade mission. It sticks in the craw. I read the sort of bump on it, and he spent the whole trip telling journalists on the flight over that this is what he's absolutely not negotiating visas.
Right.
There's going to be no.
Yeah, he's not going to give any more visas out.
No more visas. No more visas.
More.
Absolutely not going to happen. So why is he travelling with so many university vice chancellors?
Yeah, but also why is he going to India when he's already told us that he's done a trade deal with India? You know, one of the things they boast about is we've done 3 trade deals. You know, India, America, and what's the third one? Canada. Is it Canada?
India, America. Goodness me, that's how big it was.
Yeah, I think it is Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah, which, I mean, and again, the American deal isn't done. The Canadian deal doesn't really matter a row of beans, and the Indian deal is apparently one which allows people from India to come here and employ people from India on beneficial tax rates. So it's actually not really helping Britain, and it's not creating jobs for Britain. And if you take in a load of vice-chancellors with him, then presumably he's going to offer a load more people the opportunity to come to university here.
You'd think so. And there's also a story, just by the way, there's also a story about, you know, the British steel industry is about to collapse.
Well,
because the European Union's putting on 50% tariffs.
I saw that. And where are all the lefties complaining about tariffs? Because remember when Donald Trump was putting tariffs on and everyone was going, he's going to wreck the economy of the world, he's going to absolutely screw everything. The EU puts them on, and the EU has always put them on, by the way, and that's what the Americans have said, and nobody says a word.
And it's 80% of our steel exports go to the European Union. And Keir Starmer was trying to, you know, he's always tried to sort of bridge this gap between, you know, the United States on the one hand and Europe on the other.
Yeah.
And he's literally fallen straight between two stools on this.
Well, did he not say at one point he was building a bridge between the two places, and he felt that he was the man in the middle that could do that, so he's built a bridge from America to the EU, and apparently the bridge has collapsed and he's fallen down into the river.
And he's
and what a surprise!
Squash.
Yeah, bang. Thanks, Keir. Yeah,
but he has
fixing the foundations of the bridge seems to have fallen down
at the bottom of the river.
Yeah,
at the bottom of the ravine. Yeah,
yeah.
But he's. You know, he didn't get the trade deal on the. He got the only place he got the trade deal when it comes to the United States was in the car manufacturing, and then Jaguar Land Rover was hacked by.
Well, they sort of collapsed from within.
and then
they're still not making any cars, by the way.
But
haven't made a car for about 3 months. It's great.
I think they didn't. I thought they.
It's brilliant. You know, first of all, they kiboshed their own brand by doing away with the growler, as we call it, and then creating these new ridiculous sort of square block-looking electric cars in pink. And then they do the trans ad, where it's like even Elon Musk said, "Are you guys still making cars?" You know, because they had all these did choose life or something, you know, and some bloke in a dress dancing around, and you go, well, that's not really the ad we're looking for a Jaguar, actually. No. You know.
It's very un-Jaguar-like.
But they've made no cars for like 2 or 3 months.
And then, but on the steel side of things, we never got the deal on the steel. No. Trump didn't back down on the steel.
No, so there's still tariffs applicable to our steel going into America, and now the Europeans are doing the same thing.
Yeah, and the Europeans are we've already, by the way, negotiated.
I thought we had a great deal with Europe because Keir Starmer was very friendly with them.
But we've already negotiated. We've already done a negotiation with Youth Mobility Scheme on fishing rights. It's just a story on the Telegraph. We've already done that negotiation. So presumably, if we want to carve out, which is like special treatment on those 50% tax, we're going to have to go back and give the Europeans even more.
Yeah. Well, the Telegraph story says the European Union is threatening Britain's steel industry with tariffs of up to 50% in a dispute that could derail Sir Keir Starmer's attempts to reset relations with Brussels. I thought he was in like Flynn with them. I thought they loved him. I thought he loved them. I thought it was all sweetness and light. Apparently not.
No, but they always do this, Mike. They always, like, when you negotiate...
This is why we left the
Union,
European Union, because they're scumbags. They treat us like dirt. When we were in it, they treated us like dirt. Now that we've left it, they treat us like dirt. They're not interested in Britain. They're interested in their own petty little sort of, world that they occupy, and they don't like Britain. It's the end. That's it.
But these are proper manufacturing jobs.
Yeah.
Actual
jobs.
Actual jobs for people in...
By the way, what about the fake solicitor, Jonathan Reynolds? Isn't he supposed to be in charge of British Steel?
He's moved on, hasn't he?
Has he? Who's in charge of it now, then?
It's Business Secretary is Peter Carr.
Peter Carr. So Peter Carr's now in charge, the dyslexic, in charge of British Leets, as it's now known. I'm not allowed to make fun of people with dyslexia, am I?
I think it's
British Leets. I like that. It's just the term
British
Leets, L-E-E-T-S. It's British Steel, reversed.
Oh, right, backwards. Oh, well,
he's
dyslexic. Sorry.
Do you not get?
No,
Come on.
Sorry. I don't think his dyslexia will be any barrier to.
No, he's just stupid. I mean, that's the main barrier to his success is that he's an idiot. Let's have a look at Rachel Reeves saving British Steel.
From all the people in Scunthorpe and the steelworks, they're so grateful. We really, really are. Thank you very much. Firstly, I'd like to thank every department of the government for having our back, because without that, we wouldn't be here. Come June, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for yourselves. So we really, really appreciate it.
Well, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the workers. We were able to step in at the weekend and save steel here in Scunthorpe, but only because we ensured there was something to save. So we're really grateful to you, and the country's really grateful.
I'm smiling, very grateful.
We're very grateful to each other. It is really, really important that we keep what you're doing going here, and especially preserve the unique things about what you do at Scunthorpe. When we're doing big projects like investment in rail, third runway at Heathrow, we just signed off this new theme park down in Bedfordshire last week. We want British steel to be used for British construction, and as a government, with the changes we're making, we're confident that will be able to happen. But
sorry, I'm smiling. I'm so happy.
Yeah, I am as well.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So that was them saving British Steel. Now, according to, again, the Telegraph, this problem from the European Union deals a fresh blow to the Prime Minister's push to revitalise British industry after the country's steel plants and car makers were hammered by Donald Trump's tariffs. Now, it turns out Donald Trump's tariffs were one thing, right? But we only sell 7% of steel to the US. We sell 78% of our steel to the EU, right? Around 1.9 million tonnes. And it's going to be hit with a 50% tariff, which means that it's potentially devastating for the steel industry, and basically it's a huge embarrassment for the Prime Minister.
It's vindictive.
What a plonker.
It's vindictive because, of course, the reason the EU has imposed this is to prevent Chinese dumping.
Yeah.
Right, that's the reason. But that doesn't preclude them from accepting British steel into the European Union to say, well, actually, we could just, the EU could easily give us a freebie
of course they
and
could.
Say, actually, we're just going to include you with this, and they don't want to.
No. I mean, so once again, Starmer has had his pants pulled down, basically, by anyone who knows that he's completely weak and useless and hopeless, because they know that he's got nothing to do. He can't come back with anything. He's got no sort of skin in the game. He can't suddenly go, well, if you do that, we'll do this.
No.
Because he's already proved himself to be sort of lying down in front of them, supplicant, going, do whatever you want to me. I just want to be back in the gang. It's embarrassing. He's literally given the country away to the European Union. He's now giving it away to India while he's over there. And he's given it away to China on the defence front and on domestic sort of spying front, because he has no cojones. The guy's completely useless.
You would think that after Emmanuel Macron was afforded a state visit back in July to this country, that it would take one phone call from the Prime Minister to say, come on, seriously, this isn't, we're supposed to be cooperating, we're supposed to be friends and allies, sort this out for us. And Macron is whilst he is deeply unpopular within his country, he's central to the European project, and you would think that he could then just liaise with Ursula von der Leyen and sort it.
But this is
and
the
they
thing.
haven't done it.
Yeah, but we're all supposed to be great mates with Europe. You know, Starmer's hugging them, he's got his arms around them all, you know,
As
and
per
they're
that
all
state visit,
literally shafting him. You know, I mean, it's like better the devil you know. They are literally shafting him.
Well,
To the point where he's gonna
it's
need to
worse.
go to
I mean, they're
hospital.
shafting those workers in Scunthorpe from that video you played of, you know, them thinking that Rachel Reeves had done them a
They're going,
huge
if
favour.
it wasn't for the government stepping in, we'd be finished. Well, Nick, maybe now you are finished because the government stepped in. It hasn't worked. Absolutely ridiculous. We're going to talk about a great many other stories this morning. This one from Sean in Gloucester. You can tell there's some awkward questions for Keith Starling to answer. He's scarpered and he's nowhere to be found. They don't know what they're doing. It's true. He's gone off to India in the meantime, not answering. And also, I don't know if I'm wrong here, but did he appear at any kind of vigil yesterday? That's pretty appalling, isn't it? October the 7th, his wife is Jewish. By that token, his children are Jewish. He says that he's got extended family in Israel because he said it to Donald Trump. And he doesn't bother going to any kind of vigil at all on October the 7th, the second anniversary. What's wrong with him?
It's really bad, and he should be there. And the reason he should be there is, you know, we had a terrorist attack against a synagogue in Manchester only a few days ago, and the point is, if the government steps in and says, "Hang on," or the Prime Minister, the leader of this country, steps in and says, you know, "I'm in solidarity with the Jewish community against against."
He claims he's going to protect them, doesn't he?
And he's going to protect.
And he
them.
wasn't even seen in the Jewish community.
And he didn't go to. He didn't. You know, David Lammy, the Deputy Prime Minister, had to take the heckling. It should have been Keir Starmer taking the heckling at that.
Totally.
You know, taking the hits from the Jewish community on that.
Yeah.
And he didn't go up, and he didn't. And the point is that if he does go and he does stand with the Jewish community, at least that provides some leadership, so that we all know which. But he doesn't want to do that, of course, because the danger is that he'll get. There's a political judgment somewhere deep down there, isn't there, that he doesn't want to go.
Well, he's clearly he's taken the view, I'm not going to be seen anywhere. He's speaking in India at the moment, Keir Starmer. We're going to cross to him in a moment. I think we can probably look at it now. We can't quite hear it. Or can we hear it? No, it's just an echo. It sounds like he's talking into a bottle. Yeah. Which is probably just as well. Don't really want to hear what he's got to say anyway. We'll come back though. 22 minutes past 6. This is Morning Glory.
divisive. It unifies. It brings us together as one nation, as one people, with all of our different identity groups, but nonetheless, all of us British. That's the whole point. The opposite of that is division. So these people, I refuse to... they either know what they're doing or they're just idiots. And it really isn't going to matter to the country which one it is. Their arguments don't make any sense.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 25 minutes past 6. It is Wednesday, the 8th of October. Theo Eshelwood is here. Let's talk about Robert Jenrick, because it's Tory Party conference, which, again, I don't know if you made it up there, but it looked pretty ghastly. I mean, we talked to quite a few people who were there yesterday. Noel Stride, I think we spoke to on Monday. He made his speech with a lot of fire and brimstone, but as they sort of panned around the conference hall, you could see that there wasn't that many people there, and it wasn't actually very well attended. Similarly, yesterday, Robert Jenrick made it, what I thought was a pretty good speech. He was on with us yesterday. The Guardian released this sort of leaked audio, which we've got here, in which he basically talks about going to Birmingham, in Handsworth, a particular region of Birmingham, and not seeing any white faces. Let's have a quick listen to that.
In Birmingham the other day to do a video on litter, and it was absolutely appalling. It's as close as I've come to a slum in this country. But the other thing that I noticed there was that it was one of the worst integrated places that I've ever been to. In fact, in the hour and a half that I was filming with news there, I didn't see another white face. And that's not the kind of country I want to live in. I want to live in a country where people are properly integrated. It's not about the colour of your skin or your faith. Of course it isn't. But I want people to be living alongside each other, not parallel lives. That's not the right way we want to live as a country.
And of course, as you would expect, this morning it's on the front page of The Guardian. Jenrick accused of fueling toxic nationalism after race remarks. And guess who's accused him of toxic nationalism? David Lammy, Deputy Prime Minister and Justice Secretary. He says Jenrick is judging people based on the colour of their skin. He's not, actually. He's just saying, I didn't see any white people in a region of Britain which is 86% white, which tells you that there's a problem in some areas of Britain because they're not 86% white, they're not even 46% white, they're not white at all. And so basically Zach Polanski, the Green Party leader, said it was racism. We spoke to Robert Jenrick yesterday, we had him on the show, and he quite happily justified what he said. Have a look.
Yeah, well, I don't resile from those comments at all, and obviously it was The Guardian who stuck them out there.
Of course.
We want to live in a country which is well integrated, where people are living side by side. We don't want segregated pockets of our towns and cities. We don't want ghettos in this country. I want my kids to be growing up alongside their fellow Brits of all skin colours and faiths. And I'm afraid that hasn't happened in recent years. This is a problem that's got worse in my lifetime, not better. In the last 20 years, there have been at least 6 major reports into the integration failures of our country, including by very, very prominent people like Baroness Louise Casey. People don't do anything about it. And then you've got these left-wing politicians, the Labour Party today, journalists like at The Guardian, coming down on people and trying to shut down the debate, labelling them as racist, the same old story, trying to stop people talking about this issue. And I'm afraid at the extremes, this takes the country down a very dark path. Here in Manchester, just last week, you saw a man who'd lived in this country for 30 years, clearly was not integrated, did not share British values, go to a local mosque and kill British Jews. That is where a failure of integration goes in the end. So we've got to have this debate. I'm not backing down. I'm not going to be cowed. That's not my way. I'm going to make sure we keep talking about this.
He's making quite a name for himself at conference, actually, Robert Jenrick, much more so than Kemi Badenoch is, who's not making really any impact at all. I think she's speaking... Is she speaking? She's speaking today. Today?
Yeah, she was
on the final day.
About her new fiscal...
But again, it's kind of after the Lord Mayor's show. I know that they wait until the last sort of speech of the week for the Prime Minister, or the Prime Minister in waiting, if you like, or the leader to speak. But really, I don't think anybody cares what she has to say.
No. I think it feels a little bit like sometimes some newspapers, we just all need to catch up a bit.
Yeah.
Like, when I've been out, and I spend quite a lot of time outside of London now, the Tory party's dead.
Yeah.
It just doesn't, just doesn't.
A lot of people at conference that I'm speaking to, a lot of journalists who are up there saying it feels like it's dead.
It's dead.
Like, there's no money, there's no sponsors. You know, you go to a fringe meeting and there's no drink because nobody's buying it for you. You know, it's all a bit kind of just nothing.
And you saw that attempt by Boris Johnson at a sort of comeback when he did that interview with Harry Cole. And he came back and he sounded like, he sounded as if he'd been sort of reincarnated as a centrist dad.
Yeah.
He was sort of making the argument for, legal migration hitting 900,000, 900,000 under his watch. And it's if there was one person that could save the Conservative Party, I'd have thought it'd be Boris Johnson.
But of course, the reaction, funnily enough, to that interview with Harry Cole, certainly from my audience, was we don't want him back.
Yes, precisely.
He's not the guy anymore.
No,
time has passed. He's had his time. He's gone.
Precisely that.
Yeah.
Precisely that. He came back and he lasted about 30 seconds.
Yeah.
He's not. He seems to be in his head that he's fighting Jeremy Corbyn in 2019. Yeah. He's not. Right. Nigel Farage is a much bigger.
Totally.
Is completely taken over from any political space that he occupies.
It's almost like they're no longer on the stage and they're kind of peering from behind the curtain, wondering who's on the stage and why everybody's applauding.
But I see these stories of Kemi Badenoch setting out her golden rule to cut spending and borrowing.
Nobody cares.
Kemi trust me to put the UK's economy back on track.
Yeah.
And it's that.
Yeah.
No, you're irrelevant. And all of these articles, all of these stories, right, are predicated on the view that Kemi Badenoch can be Prime Minister.
Yeah.
Which is for the birds.
So far away from reality.
Go out and just go to Kent, go to Yorkshire, go to any county, and you will not find a single man or woman who thinks that Kemi Badenoch will be Prime Minister.
I mean,
pretend?
We're doing a story later on, I think, this morning with Richard Tice, where I think something like 23 Conservative councillors defected yesterday to Reform, like overnight. 23.
And they just dripped them out.
Yeah. And there's meant to be another big announcement supposedly coming, we're told, before Kemi Badenoch's speech today, which could be another sort of big-wig Tory. And I know some Reform voters are not keen on that, but Nigel's playing it quite cleverly because he's saying, well, listen, if there's somebody that we think is able to do a good job for us and who is on our side, and I think Robert Jenrick will eventually go because he's bound to, then it strengthens Reform's case ever more. Let's have a look at Kemi Badenoch yesterday being interviewed by Beth Rigby from Sky and getting a bit rattled about Farage.
Nigel Farage is a politician.
On what basis?
Do you admire him?
I don't understand your question.
Well, it's just an open question. What do you think of him?
Why aren't you asking if I admire Keir Starmer or Ed Davey?
Well, I asked Keir Starmer about whether he admired Nigel Farage as well.
And I think it's very interesting that a lot of the media in Westminster is very interested about asking about Nigel Farage. I'm not interested in Nigel Farage. I'm not interested in talking about Nigel Farage. You tell me that people aren't interested in me. I'm on your show. Ask me about what I think. You spent most of the interview asking about Reform. Reform's already had their conference.
Is it making you cross that I'm doing this? Because you seem irritated.
No, it isn't.
I
just think that your viewers want to know what I'm off.
Oh dear.
She was hopeless.
What's the point of, why wouldn't you just say, no, I don't admire him, I don't think he's doing the right thing for the country, or I do admire him, I think he's an amazing politician, I don't agree with any of his views. Why would you get stuck in the weeds like that and go, I don't want to talk about him? I've told you not to ask me about him, I don't want to talk about Reform, all you do is ask me about Reform. It doesn't look good, does it?
It's hopeless. And I don't even feel sorry for some poor, hapless Conservative press officer who would have been expected to brief an answer for what do you admire Nigel Farage? Right. You've just got to have the chops as the leader of the opposition.
Say what you think.
To say what you think, exactly. Right. And as you say, you can go either way. You can say, yes, I admire him, but I don't think he's the right person to lead the country. No, I don't admire him because I think he's done this, and this that's wrong. But I accept that he's made some good points.
She was looking there like a woman who was asked about her ex-husband. You know?
Yeah.
What do you think? Do you admire your ex-husband? Well, how dare you ask me that question? Yeah, we're divorced, for heaven's sake. I don't want to talk about that. Yeah. I mean, it's not very clever, is it?
But she's, she's not. I don't think there's a point. I know there've been a couple of moments where she's had a good Prime Minister's questions, and people have said, OK, they saw her as the next big hope for the Conservative Party. But in truth, she's not at any stage.
She's not there yet, is she?
She's not going to get a chance to get there.
No.
I think that's the point.
No.
And this sort of pretense that everybody's playing along, like we're going to go and write up, friendly stories about the Conservative Party, like.
And also, the other
on.
thing that I think they've got massively wrong is this kind of wait and see attitude that they've got, where they go, just wait and see what our policy is going to be on that, and everyone's gone, nah, you're fine. Let's just go over there because we're not interested. It's like, just tell us now, or just don't don't worry about it.
Yeah,
you know,
it's literally
we're actually only really being polite to ask you.
But for Conservative councillors, this is literally a problem because they're going out on the doorstep, knock on the door. Hi, I'm your local Conservative councillor. I was elected. And they've
shut the door.
And it's like, okay, well, yeah, they can either just go bang, shut the door, and they've got the door up against their face, or they say, okay, what do you stand for? Well, Kimmy hasn't made a decision.
Yeah, we're going to announce that soon. It's coming up in the autumn.
But then they get, 2 minutes later, they get the Reform guy turning up, or Reform woman turning up, going, this is what Nigel Farage is going to do.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that sounds sensible. I'll do that then.
Yeah. Absolutely right. Now I'm going to play this to you just because I like you and you're going to enjoy this. This is Democratic California Governor candidate Katie Porter having a bit of a meltdown when asked a question that she didn't like from a journalist.
I don't want to keep doing this. I'm going to call it. Okay. Thank you.
You're not going to do the interview with us?
Nope, not like this. I'm not. Not with 7 follow-ups to every single question you ask.
Every other candidate has answered.
I don't care.
Follow-ups.
I don't care. I want to have a pleasant, positive conversation in which you ask me about every issue on this list. And if every question you're going to make up a follow-up question, then we're never going to get there.
Ms.
And
Porter,
we're just going to circle around.
I am an investigative
I have never
reporter.
had to do this before, ever.
You've never had to have a conversation with
to end
a
an
reporter?
interview.
Okay, but every other candidate has done this.
What part of I'm me? I'm running for governor because I'm a leader. So I am going to make...
So you're not going to answer questions from reporters? Okay, why don't we go through? I will continue to ask follow-up questions because that's my job as a journalist, but I will go through and ask these, and if you don't want to answer, you don't want to answer. So nearly every legislative...
I don't want to have an unhappy experience with you, and I don't want this all on camera.
I don't want to have an unhappy experience with you either.
Unhappy experience. Brilliant. This is a new thing, right? And I've noticed that several people have now said it in government. I saw, who was it that was, I think it was Peter Carr that did it at the weekend. Somebody else did it. Rachel Reeves did it on Good Morning Britain. I'm not going to answer that question because if I answer it, you're just going to ask me another question. And you're kind of going, well, that's what an interview is about, people asking you questions and you answering them. This new kind of trend where politicians are going, I don't want to answer those questions, you're being unfair, is like, what's going on with that? Have you noticed that?
Yeah, I haven't. Funnily enough, I was just sort of thinking about this in terms of watching sporting events.
Right.
And you have athletes now, or tennis players, or people say, it's just too much competition.
Yeah.
I'm going to take a break for I'm going to take a break for a year or so, and I'll come back, look after and then I'm going to go again.
Right.
And the reason, let's just make no bones about it, right? The reason that they're doing it is because they don't have the answers.
Yeah.
If you have the answers and you're confident in what you're trying to achieve, then and what you're saying, then that's not a problem.
Right. Exactly.
And you've done so many interviews, Mike. I also imagine, from your point of view, if you're interviewing Kemi Badenoch's coming on your show.
She's not coming on apparently at the moment because her people told us that she's not coming on. So I had Robert Jenrick on yesterday. I said, would you mind telling Kemi Badenoch, to if she wants to get anywhere, she needs to come and talk to us.
Yeah. But why isn't she coming on?
Yeah, I don't know.
What's there I mean, you're not that bad.
I'm really not. But I mean, none of the Labour government will come on. I mean, we had the ludicrous and sort of spectacle last week of Labour ministers only agreeing to come onto my show if they could speak through an interpreter who happened to be the political editor of The Sun, Jack Elsom. So they would speak to Jack Elsom on our camera, right? But I wasn't allowed to ask them any questions, as if I'm like Hannibal Lecter or something. It was bizarre. I was like, what's going on here?
But if they're confident in themselves and in their arguments and what they're saying and what they want to do for this country, then they can come and they can have an argument with you, and they can win that argument.
Of course. And that's the prize is to make me look stupid, or to shut me down, or to go, no, you don't know what you're talking about. You're just sitting there on your fat backside as some kind of radio pundit. We are actually dealing with real problems here. We're dealing with real issues, and so you can shut the hell up, and we'll tell you what we're doing. That's what I would do.
Yeah, but tell me also if I'm wrong. And having worked in this business for a long time, you're a bit like a shark. You smell blood.
Yeah.
Right? So if you think somebody is just trying to fob you off or talking cobblers,
and they do a lot,
and then you go for them.
Yeah, of course.
I've seen your interviews. You give them a go.
Yeah.
Right. Have a go at answering this question.
Yeah.
And if that person answers that question, they have something straightforward and a common sense answer, reasonably truthful answer, you give them the benefit of the doubt and you go on your way and you do an interview. But it does happen, I'd imagine, once, twice, 3 times a day, you'll get a politician who comes on your show and they try and hoodwink you, or more importantly,
they don't answer the question.
Or they're trying to hoodwink your listeners.
Exactly.
And your job as a journalist is to say, no, let's go back on that point, please. I'd like you to answer that question. Or is that really what you think? Because I don't think that's the view of my viewers or listeners. That's
my duty is to the people who take the time to listen to this show and to watch this show. My duty is to them, not to the bleeding government, not to anybody I'm interviewing, right? And not even to you. My role is to get from whoever I'm talking to the truth, so that they can see and judge what they want to make of that person.
And the prize is that more people come to this radio station to listen to your show because they think that actually they get something that aligns with their own political views and that they can make sense of the world on any given moment.
And I mean, a good example actually is this Robert Jenrick story, because yesterday you should have seen the way that Sky was treating it, the way that the BBC was treating it, the way that ITV was treating it, literally as though Robert Jenrick was the new Adolf Hitler, because he'd happened to have an observation about not seeing any white faces in Handsworth, which, according to a piece that I was just reading in The Guardian, is 9% white. Right?
Yeah.
Now, in a country that's 86% white, I would say that's an anomaly. I would say that is a ghetto. I would say that is an unusual situation. And so he was quite right to call it out and to say, I didn't see any white faces. And the reason he didn't see any white faces is because he's only 9% white. And that's a town, a section of Birmingham, one of the biggest, the second city of Britain, right? And it's got something like a tenth of the general population.
So I listened. I thought your interview with him, by the way, was very good. The interview you did subsequently, and my own view on this is that the colour. The point he's making about values is the most important point. And that if you go down, you'd have seen what happened yesterday outside one of the universities in London with those pro-Palestine protests on a day when the Jewish community is grieving. That those aren't our values, and we're seeing that increasingly now. Not just those pro-Palestine marches, we're seeing it across the board. And I think there's a for me, that is where the problem is. I think the colour of your skin is irrelevant. I think the really important point is the values you hold in what you believe Britain to be and what you believe Britain should be and should become. And I think the language,
and also what you're contributing to Britain.
What you're contributing to this country and what you're giving this country, not just what you're taking out of this country. And if you don't align, we're going to fall apart really quickly. Things are going to unravel really fast if we can't agree that crossing a border of a sovereign country, capturing 250 people, taking them hostage, killing another 1,200, including grandmothers, women, fathers, children, that is abhorrent. And we don't stand for that. If we can't agree on something as basic as that, because what started with a synagogue last week is a shopping centre the next week. That's how it works. I've seen this play out time and time again.
Or a stadium.
Or a stadium. It will affect us. I know those who work, and they've long been contacts of mine, those who work to protect the Jewish community in this country, right? And they often see themselves, and I don't like using these sort of phrases, but the Jewish community is often the canary in the coal mine. That's where it comes. That's where it goes first, right? And then it will affect us all. So we're going to have. And my real fear in this country is we would have a terrorist attack like what we saw on July the 7th, 2005. And I remember reading Jeremy Clarkson's column in The Sun after that, and he said, do you know what I'd do with those terrorists? I'd feed them into a ham slicer.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, this is, you know, this is like, these are our, you know, let's be clear about what our values are. And my fear is that I hope I've commented, it's so long ago reading this, but I always remember reading this, is that the country was behind that view, that everybody, no matter what your race, religion, creed, colour of your skin, like, terrorism is abhorrent. But my real fear is that if you have people going out on a march on the day a terrorist attack happens at a synagogue and saying, I don't really care about the Jewish community, what happens if tomorrow it's a Westfield?
Yeah, exactly.
Or what happens if it's a marauding attack through the streets of London or Birmingham? And suddenly, what are we going to, you know, for people, perfectly innocent people, are we going to then have a debate? Are we going to have a march saying, well, actually, there was some justification?
I know.
You remember that Jihadi John?
Yeah.
And the cage statement afterwards, he was a beautiful young man, and the revulsion that came after that. My concern about this country and the values that are held in this country is that if there was another Jihadi John who went around beheading people in Syria and posting the videos on the internet, then actually, yes, you'd have normal, common sense people like your listeners and like a proportion of the country. But my real concern is now there's a rump that would say, yeah, but what have we done? What have we done to do? You know, I thought we brought this on ourselves.
It's absolutely unbelievable. This is a very, very good point that you make there. We've just got to rush off because we're running terribly late. It's 6:45. Theo Rushwood's here with me. We'll talk more about this coming next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 6:48. I'm Mike Graham. Morning, Mike. A great show. I think Kemi didn't want to talk about Nigel because she knows he's the national political focus of the centre-right and the right, not the Conservatives. I think that's true. And Stuart says the vast majority of British people do not want to live in a street full of people with a different culture and religion. They want to live next to people of their own culture and religion. Hence, they move out and more of the others move in, and you get what we have now. And I think that's the problem with a lot of parts of the country. And again, it's not a racist view to say that, because there are plenty. I mean, we had a a woman in here whose name I can't remember, who was on The Apprentice, a Muslim commentator who's been in a couple of times on the show, and she basically said, you know, there are Muslim ghettos in this country, and the sooner we recognise that and the sooner we try and fix that, the better, because you can't have areas of Birmingham or areas of Bradford or areas of Manchester where there are simply no white people and it's not even about colour, it's about a religion. You know, there are Sharia laws going on, there are women being subjugated, there are, you know, lifestyles being sort of, shall we say, administered to people which are not British. It's as simple as that. And it's not Britain anymore.
It works. You know, Britain is a diverse country, and it works best when you have community, when people are, when it's mixed.
When it's mixed,
I think also
nobody minds multiculturalism. People like multiculturalism. People like. I mean, I certainly am quite happy to walk down the street and run into people speaking Italian, Spanish, you know, Hindi, Urdu. I don't care, but make it normal. But
what I think what has become lost, Mike, and this is my bigger concern, is we've lost an identity of what it means to be, of what our values are, of what it means to be British.
Yes. Yeah, because in those ghettos, you don't get a sense of Britishness. You get a sense of a foreign entity taking over. That's what people feel.
But you shouldn't have people. You shouldn't be able to be elected by campaigning for your stance on Palestine.
Exactly right.
You're elected on can you deliver? And this is what's happened. You know, particularly.
But that's one of the biggest problems that we've currently got. We've got 4 politicians in Parliament who are independents, who were elected purely and simply because of their views on Palestine, and that can't be right.
But you're quoting here Zach Polanski, who was critical of Robert Jenrick. You had a councillor, I think it's the deputy leader now of the Green Party. Yeah. You know, who when he was elected shouted Free Palestine. Yeah. But actually I think he's elected up in the north in Leeds. You know, what about, you know, if you're going to be running services up in Leeds, you're concentrating on the services that you are responsible for, that you are holding the purse strings of some millions of pounds, sometimes billions of pounds in budget for. That's why you are elected to that particular position. Sure. If you want to stand and represent Palestine, go to Palestine.
Yeah, right.
Go and see how you know.
They don't have elections there, though, do they?
No.
It's not really that easy to stand in Palestine.
Yeah, you know, or you know, go and but concentrate. And too often, political parties have a piece of street. I'm happy. Have a Muslim councillor, have a Muslim mayor, have a Muslim MP. But what?
And let them represent the Muslim community in that region, but let's not have the Muslim community become the only community. That's the point.
And concentrate on what those services are in your community that people need, regardless of their race, religion, creed, or whatever, so that they're getting the best. And how are you spending taxpayers' money? And how are you getting value for money? Are you wasting it? Are you spending too much money on taxes or expenses? Well, you know, deliver the policies, because
do the job.
But precisely, and all we're doing at the moment is signalling. We're electing people, signalling on their political, you know, stance on a conflict that's taking place 3,000 miles away and has no bearing on what's happening on the ground in this country. And if we lose sight of that, what have we become?
I know, exactly.
What are we going to get done?
Exactly, absolutely right. We're going to take another break. Quick voice note from Laura on China.
Morning, Mike. Laura in Wiltshire. This China Jonathan Powell story really, really stinks. And the fact that the CPS have come out to brief against number 10 is interesting. But that slippery sod's just gone off to India, probably to do one of his dastardly clever deals and give away more visas and whatever else he can think of. Anyway, looking forward to the show. Let's do it.
Laura, thank you very much indeed. Very well said. Of course, there's a big problem in the UK. How do you know? Because Keir Starmer's left the country. 6:53.
he should be really ashamed of himself, and I think he probably regrets, the way he is behaved. Do you not think he does?
I think the only thing he'll be worried about is friendship with Beckham. He's going to get a knighthood, isn't he? And at the end of the day, yeah, but Beckham has spent years trying to get a knighthood. And I'm completely. Yeah. He is symptomatic, is he not, of a large number of those sorts of celebrities who have made 70, 100 million quid and now talk down to us. I mean, he was Starmer's attack dog. I reckon he wanted to be mayor of Manchester.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. 6:57. Blimey, the news has ratcheted up. US delays over the government shutdown. That's one story. The Revolut billionaire quits Britain. This is, you know how the left are always saying, it's all rubbish that people are leaving Britain. Well, here's one that's not rubbish. Revolut's billionaire chief executive has quit London for the United Arab Emirates, joining the growing exodus of wealthy entrepreneurs from the UK. Nikolai Staronsky, the founder of the £56 billion giant, one of Britain's richest men, has moved to the Gulf state, according to his filing for his family office. So Rachel Reeves, I'm afraid, has lost another massive taxpayer who would have been paying probably millions of pounds in tax, I would imagine.
Yeah, we need these people. We may not, you can make whatever argument you like, but we need these people to be based here in this country. Yeah. If I know Farage has made this point previously, but these people have the ability to go and shop in the most expensive and luxurious shops, stay in the nicest hotels, buy the biggest flats, and all of those things come with huge amounts of tax. Yeah. And somebody was saying the other day that one of the problems, I think it was a column I read, it was actually Giles Corrin, I think, in the Times, writing about the demise of the department store, because the government has done away with the VAT exemption for foreigners, and so I mean I'm in and out of Selfridges quite a lot because I happen to go, I go there a couple of times a week to go to the gym over there, and there's so many foreigners and so many Arabs in particular walking up and down Oxford Street, but they're not buying as much stuff as they used to buy, because they're not exempt from VAT anymore. No. And so Rachel Reeves has been urged to give them that back, to bring them all back to Britain. Yeah. And if they're not going to stay, yes, you get the VAT back, but then they'll spend money in other areas where there is tax to be.
Well, they'll go to Paris, or they'll go to Munich, or they'll go to another Madrid.
And we need these people to come to this country and spend money in this country, because then that supports everything, all the other things that we want.
Exactly, that is the problem. One final one, because we've only got about 30 seconds left. Apparently you can't call anybody a nutter anymore.
Yes, I saw this.
This is on page 25 of The Sun. There's been an employment tribunal where calling particularly a colleague a nutter, I mean, you'd never do that, would you? Could be harassment, and apparently a term may be found liable under employment law for creating an unpleasant and hostile environment. I don't often call people nutters, and I certainly don't call people that I work with nutters, but I do call people who demonstrate on the streets nutters. But anyway, we've got to go. Sorry, Theo Rushwood, thank you very much indeed. This is, of course, Talk. We'll be back after the news. Done.
Libya has become a major transit route for refugees and migrants from sub-Saharan Africa, and many of them come through Libya dreaming of getting to the UK, particularly from Sudan, where there has been a civil war waging for the last 2 years. And those asylum seekers or economic migrants who make it from Sudan to the UK have a 99% chance of being given leave to remain. So I spent several hours talking to immigration chiefs here in Benghazi on the east side of Libya. The Libyan National Army has a very good grip on the immigration problem, albeit fighting against a huge crisis with limited resources. There is a very, very clear process of giving people proper health checks, the life-saving care that they need, and then working out where it is exactly that they've come from. Their message to the UK is that you are fueling this problem. You are effectively advertising a great new life for people from sub-Saharan Africa. They actually said, you know, what do you think happens when a guy from Sudan comes up through Libya and makes his way all the way to the UK and gets put in a luxurious hotel and provided with everything? And make no mistake, it is a perilous journey. We see it from the end point. We see the channel crossing as the dangerous bit. But actually where these journeys begin is in the hot desert. Many, many tens of kilometres have to be covered on foot by these migrants. And as many as 1 in 4 do not make it. That means bodies in the desert. The Libyan authorities are having to recover bodies in the desert. About the UK and how much awareness. Please understand the scale of what we are dealing with here with very, very limited resources. Once again, you know, people come in from charities, from NGOs, they use warm words, and the authorities here told me the only thing that we ever get is maybe a few toothbrushes and some nappies for the babies.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's coming up to 3 minutes past 7. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through, of course, until 10 o'clock. It's Wednesday, the 8th of October. It's the day after October the 7th, the second anniversary of that horrific terrorist attack in Israel, of course, committed by Hamas and the ghastly armed troops that came over into a sovereign country, broke through the border, came in on paragliders, came in trucks, pickup trucks. They kidnapped 250 people. They killed around 1,200 people, burned them to death, raped them, beheaded them, took pictures of them, filmed themselves doing it, raped women, filmed themselves doing that. I'm afraid I've seen quite a lot of the terrible images from that terrible day on October the 7th. And here's my question. Why is it that Keir Starmer, whose wife is Jewish, whose children are therefore Jewish, didn't decide it was a good idea to go and actually pay any kind of tribute to the fallen, to pay any kind of tribute to the hostages, to pay any kind of tribute to the state of Israel on that particular day? Instead, he beseeched, as he did at the weekend, students not to go out and chant for global intifada. Once again, his pleas fell on deaf ears, and those people outside of universities all over Britain came out in defence of Hamas, in defence of jihad, in defence of murder and rape and mayhem on October the 7th, and they did not pay one iota of attention to Keir Starmer. But why wasn't he even, given that he loves a tweet, given that he loves putting out images of himself on TikTok, on Instagram and on Twitter, why did he not picture himself lighting a candle, paying some kind of tribute to the Jewish community, particularly after what happened in Manchester last week, which of course resulted in the deaths of 2 Jewish individuals who were targeted by a crazed Islamist who was brought to this country by his parents from Syria in 2005. I don't understand the Prime Minister's logic. I don't understand why he's gone to India. I don't understand what he's doing there. We'll bring you footage of that as we go forward. He's in Mumbai at the moment. 0344 499 1000. We'll talk as well about Robert Jenrick, and he's been attacked by David Lammy this morning and that other idiot from the Green Party, who is, of course, Zach Polanski, a man who used to have a different name and he used to have a different job. Do you know what his last job was? Hypnotising women so that their breasts could increase in size. I kid you not. When I was told that at first, I thought it was a joke. But no, that used to be his job. He used to sit in a room with women and he used to hypnotise them and tell them their breasts were going to get bigger. I mean, what on earth is going on in the political world of this country? 0344 499 1000. Also, we'll find out why an asylum hotel chain has made £187 million in 1 year. That's pure profit from you, from me, from the government and from these scumbag asylum seekers who are coming here illegally on small boats. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. One of the other stories we're doing this morning, of course, is also about the European Union, who have decided to slap 50% tariffs on British steel. Now, you might remember when Donald Trump was doing this at the beginning of the year, people were up in arms. They were going, oh, my God, Donald Trump's going to ruin the world's economy. It's all going to collapse. We're all going to lose everything. We're going to lose all our money. We're going to lose all our pensions. Nobody's going to have any money. We're not going to have any exports. It's going to be awful. There's going to be thousands of people unemployed. How many people do you think have complained about this policy from the European Union, particularly from the Labour side? None. Zip. Zero. Not a sausage, bugger all. Nobody has complained about it, OK? And it turns out that British steel actually exports more to Europe than it does to the United States of America. Just 7% of what they produce goes to the US, whereas 78% of what it produces currently goes to the European Union. So this is absolutely catastrophic for the British steel industry. Let's play, if you might want to remember, Rachel Reeves telling us that she'd saved the British steel industry. This is a while ago.
From all the people in Scunthorpe and the steelworks, they're so grateful. We really, really are. Thank you very much. Firstly, I'd like to thank every department of the government for having our back, because without that, we wouldn't be here. Come June, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for yourselves. So we really, really appreciate it.
Well, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the workers. We were able to step in the weekend and save steel here in Scunthorpe, but only because we ensured there was something to save. So we're really grateful to you, and the country's really grateful.
I'm smiling. Very grateful.
We're very grateful to each other. It is really, really important that we keep what you're doing going here, and especially preserve the unique things about what you do at Scunthorpe when we're doing big projects.
Whoop-de-doo. Whenever you see Rachel Reeves wearing a hard hat, you need to run for the hills, whatever you do. Hey, here's Keir Starmer talking about getting rid of steel tariffs.
Will remove tariffs on British steel and aluminium, reducing them to zero.
Yeah, unfortunately didn't get the EU's permission to say that, because they've just put 50% tariff on British steel. I mean, unbelievable, right? And remember this, Jonathan Reynolds, who was the business secretary, the fake solicitor, the bloke who pretended he was a solicitor for 10 years, he, of course, was given to be in charge of British Steel. And now that he's no longer business secretary, he's got some other job, I don't know what it is. Peter Kyle is now in charge. So presumably he's now in charge of British Steel. So it's all going to hell in a handcart. Let's talk to Joanna Bell, political commentator. Joanna, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. How are you today?
I'm very well indeed. It's all gone wrong, I'm afraid, in the steel business. It looks as though Keir Starmer's pledge to get rid of all tariffs on all goods, particularly steel, has fallen on deaf ears, because it now looks like the European Union is going to charge us 50% tariffs, which is going to wreak absolute havoc with our steel industry and could be the death knell of it, apparently.
Yeah, look, he just, he lies, he kicks the can down the road. We're out of the EE, the single market, so we don't get any of the benefits of being in the EU. And I don't know how he could make that promise when he couldn't honour it.
Well, I mean, he makes a lot of promises that he can't honour, doesn't he? I mean, that's his shtick. I mean, he makes statements that turn out not to be true pretty much every single day. I mean, I was quite staggered, by the way, and I mentioned this at the top of the show, that he didn't seem to think it was a good idea yesterday to go out and be seen lighting a candle, taking part in some vigil, in some way, yeah, sympathising with the families of the hostages or anything, he just did nothing.
Not even a mawkish tribute, and it's absolutely disgraceful. I was at the Friends of Israel event last night, and the people there feel like Keir Starmer has betrayed the Jewish community. He has completely sold them down the river, and also, they felt like, not even a tribute, but also the fact that he's going to recognize the Palestinian state without any conditions, not even giving the hostages back. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. He's rewarding terrorism. And like you said earlier, you know, some of the stories that I heard last night, girls, beautiful girls, been shot in the face, destroyed, absolutely destroyed, so that their mothers couldn't give them an open casket or see them again. I mean, these people, what happened on October 7th, it was just pure barbarianism. And for him to reward that is just a slap in the face for all the parents and all the people who have relatives who are still hostages or who were killed. And the simple fact is that, you know, the Jewish community in Britain only make up 0.6% of the population, whereas the Muslim community make up something like 3.5%.
Yeah.
So this is really a cynical ploy for him to get votes, the Muslim vote. So he doesn't care about Jewish people.
He really doesn't, and he's made that very clear. I mean, every single statement he's made since the Manchester stabbings has been completely absent of the word Islam and completely absent of the word Muslim. You know, he talks about solidarity with the Jewish community, but he doesn't actually blame the people who have killed Jews for what they've done. He doesn't name them. He doesn't say it's down to Islamic fundamentalism.
It's absolutely, it's horrifying to think. And you know, there was talk last night about the BBC, you know, being a propaganda machine for Palestine and Hamas, essentially. And it's absolutely disgraceful that Tim Davies is still in a job after he allowed Bob Villan to quote the debt to the IDF on stage at Glastonbury. You know, it seems that, you know, these college students, these young girls who are supporting Palestine don't realize, had they been in Israel on October 7th, you know, the jihadi guy is not going to stop and say, oh, which country are you from?
Yeah.
They just kill indiscriminately.
Right. Well, let me give you a flavour of how crazy the world has become, right? This is a pro-Palestinian protester in New York City yesterday. You won't believe this.
Is this the trans flag?
This is the Palestinian flag mixed with the trans flag.
Okay. What do you say to those who say that trans people would be killed in Palestine?
I mean, I don't know about that, but I know that I'm standing here today. At least 50% of the Gazan government needs to be trans women. Like Muhammad herself was, in fact, a trans lesbian.
Muhammad was a woman?
Yeah, Islam is a trans religion. Muhammad herself was a proud trans lesbian.
In Iran, the morality police and also in Gaza, they kill trans people. Like, do you think that that's not true? Or?
I mean, I think they're secretly Jews if they do that. Because no Muslim would actually do that. Like, Islam is a gay religion. It is
they asked Muslims in Gaza what you would do with trans people. They say that we don't have that here. We kill those people.
I mean, I don't know, but that's why we need to protest harder, that we need at least 50% of the Palestinian government to be trans women.
I mean, it kind of leaves you a bit speechless, that, doesn't it?
I think that guy needs to be sectioned.
Yeah.
But it's actually...
it's like, what are you doing? What are you talking about?
Well, at least he's an original thinker. That's one standpoint I haven't heard before. But this is the crazy ideology of these people. They're learning all this ideology in universities, and they're being funded by Qatar.
Yeah, I mean, somebody must have told him that, right? Somebody must have told him that. The Muslim religion is a gay religion, that somehow Muhammad was a trans lesbian. I mean, seriously?
I think actually if he said that in a Middle Eastern country, they would throw him off a roof.
Yeah.
That's a highly offensive thing, I mean, I imagine, in Islam. But, you know, the thing is that, you know, if you give these people their own country, it's just going to end up like Afghanistan. And I don't know if you read the news about there was an earthquake in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And because women are not allowed to have a voice, they were just stuck in the rubble because men aren't allowed to touch anyone who's not their wife. Right. So these women just died in the rubble.
No, I watched a 20-minute treatise about it on Sky News the other day, you know, over the weekend. I mean, you would have thought there was no other story in town. They were doing this ridiculous report about, you know, parts of Afghanistan which looked like they were bombed back into the Stone Age, you know, years ago, and now there's been an earthquake. They don't look much different, to be honest. And, you know, they were going on and on and on about what a big story it was, and it's like, well, fine. But, you know, these are people who live in medieval conditions and they live in a backward way. And like you say, they don't recognise women. Women aren't allowed to even show two eyes now in Afghanistan. You're only allowed to show one eye. So they've got a new burqa, which apparently covers their entire body and one eye. So that only one eye, so you better have a good eye, I suppose, looks out from the letterbox.
I mean, it's you know, you're dealing with nutters, as you... Are we allowed to say that?
Nutters, yeah. You can, yeah, as long as you don't call your colleagues nutters, it's fine. But you can call them nutters, that's for sure. What about Starmer in India, by the way? Have you seen this? Let me play you this. This is him in the cockpit of a plane talking to the passengers.
This is the Prime Minister. I'm in the cockpit, and a very warm welcome to BA Flight 9100 to Mumbai. It's really fantastic to have you all on board. This is the biggest trade mission to India that the UK has ever sent. So I'm much looking forward to working with you as we explore all of the opportunities and take full advantage of the opportunities in our new free trade agreement. So safe flight, everybody. Enjoy the flight, and I'll give you further information once I've taken off. Thank you.
Excellent. Fantastic. A natural. Did you say when I'm taking off?
Yes.
I mean, that's about as pathetic a thing as I've ever seen.
Oh, God, I think I'd be terrified if I got on a plane that Keir Starmer was flying. I mean, he's actually... It's kind of embarrassing.
It's really embarrassing. It looks as if he's looking down, reading it as well.
Why is he even there? Because, you know, in the news, the Indian Prime Minister wished Putin a happy birthday.
Yeah.
And then Keir was forced to say, oh, I didn't wish him a happy birthday. And it's just like, you know, the Chinese government, where you were talking about the spies earlier on.
Yeah.
You know, the government can't call China out as being an enemy because they're so dependent on them.
Yes.
They need them. And that's a really sad thing for Britain, to be so dependent on, you know, a hostile country.
Yeah.
And this is where we are right now.
I know.
It's crazy that he's in India, you know, on the anniversary of the October 7 attacks. And, you know, they're just all over the place. I feel like he got out of the country just to avoid it.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I'm sure he doesn't want to answer questions about China, doesn't want to answer questions about October the 7th, doesn't want to answer questions, period, because everything is falling apart around his ears. Listen, great to see you. Joanna Bell, thank you very much indeed, political commentator there. Let's get a voice note from Wayne on Robert Jenrick.
Morning, Mike. It's Wayne from Erdington, mate, in Birmingham. Generic all over the news last night, everybody trying to call him a racist. I had a look at the social demographic. There's between 2 and 4% at the most white British in Handsworth. Any wonder he couldn't see a white face? Just a thought, Mike. Have a great day, mucker.
Yeah, I've seen a breakdown which says it's actually 9%, but it's pretty low, considering 86% of this country is white. Only 9% of Handsworth is white. And that tells you an awful lot about why Robert Jenrick couldn't see a white face. Tony says this: the China spy case has exploded big time. What the hell is going on here? Very good question. Joanna from Salisbury says, hi, Mike. What is it with the EU attack on the UK? 50% tariffs so they can buy cheap rubbish from China. Well, you may well ask. Certainly, it looks as though Keir Starmer has made yet another massive blunder. We'll ask Richard Tice about it. He's coming up next.
I think it's now really, really clear. If you're going on one of these events and you go to an event on the anniversary of October the 7th, the worst massacre of Jews since the Holocaust, I think we know what you really think. Do you think that this is a fascist flag? Well, I proudly have this flag in my bag. And the reason why I have it is so that when I'm on the train home and those idiots get on and they wear their kaffirs and they have the little Palestinian flags, I get my flag out and I put that on.
What do you say to them?
Oh, well, they tell me I'm a disgusting genocidal baby killer.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 22 minutes past 7. This from Alan in Middlesbrough. Robert Jenrick was spot on. If parts of Birmingham were a fully integrated city, then it would not have certain communities that are self-policed by imams, with local police taking a step back for the sake of community adhesion. And this one from Sean. It says the most important thing for any immigrant coming to this country is to be British. The skin colour, religion or whatever is totally irrelevant. But the woke, virtue-signalling loony left can't get past this idiotic racism. If any immigrants don't want to adopt our way of life, don't come or leave. Simple. Yeah, I think it's pretty straightforward, isn't it? Let's get a voice note from Phil on the tariff situation.
From Nottingham. Regards the EU and the steel tariffs, they've never liked us, have they? I think we go full scorched earth here and say 50% on all French and German cars.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why we couldn't do that, because it looks as though very much we have been sort of taken for a very long ride by the European Union. Keir Starmer's gone on and on and on about how we need to reset our relationship, and it now looks as though he's taken a flight to India, and they've basically turned around and completely stopped him and gone, we're going to put 50% tariffs on British steel, and we export 78% of exports from British steel to Europe. Let's talk to Richard Tice about this, because he'll know a thing or two about tariffs. Richard, very good morning to you.
Well, a very good morning to you. And yes, isn't it funny? Seems with the EU that it's one rule for them and a completely different rule for anybody else. Yeah. Normally, we have to comply with every single letter of the Trading Cooperation Agreement. But when it suits the EU, now they just put a coach and horses through it. And this sort of threat has to be met with robust resilience from the Prime Minister and the government. And they have to understand that two can play at this. I wonder how many French fishermen would be thrilled at the idea that fishing boats would be their fishing boats would be banned from UK waters for the next 12 months.
Yeah. Well, why don't we just say, you know, if you want a licence to fish in our waters, that's going to cost you £500,000 each. See how that goes.
Well, exactly. All of that needs to be put on the table if the EU want to play these games. And the reality is they need us more than we need them. We're still paying them large amounts of money under the original divorce agreement, so we could just stop paying those sums of money and so on. But it requires a determined, courageous Prime Minister, and I'm not sure that's what we've got at the moment.
No, it doesn't seem so, does it? No, I mean, he's so courageous that, one, he didn't even bother to actually show his face yesterday on the second anniversary of October the 7th. He didn't, you know, I would have thought any right-thinking, honourable man would have been seen at least lighting a candle, even if it was inside Downing Street, doing something, you know. He made no attempt to commemorate the deaths of those people on that terrible day. He made no attempt to say what he said last week, which was to safeguard the Jewish community in this country. He made no attempt to sympathise with them, you know, nothing whatsoever, literally an empty vessel. And I think that tells you all you need to know about this man.
It does. He's chosen his side. That is the reality. And he and this government have abandoned and betrayed the Jewish community for many, many months now. the ultimate betrayal, of course, was the ludicrous recognition of a Palestinian state, which was basically a reward to Hamas. And these decisions have consequences. And we can't prove it, but it may well be that if you create a vacuum, then these vile anti-Semitic protests continue. And then that sort of thing encourages the odd horrendous monster, Jihad al-Shami, to say, well, that sort of gives me license to go and commit murder against Jewish people. So that is the regrettable consequence where you don't take a clear, robust stance. And of course, the Prime Minister yesterday should have done what I did and many, many others have done, which is to stand rock solid with the Jewish community. I was at an event yesterday, early evening, in the centre of London, in a sense, a memorial event to those who died exactly 2 years ago yesterday. And frankly, that's what any right and decent person would do.
Yeah, absolutely right. Let's talk a bit about the Conservative Party. They're having their conference this week. It looks more like a wake to me. I can't see anything good coming out of it. Kemi Badenoch's going to speak today, but literally nobody really cares. And in the midst of it, you've had 20 Tory councillors defect from the Conservative Party and join Reform.
I think at one moment we had more councillors yesterday defecting to Reform than there were people actually sitting in some of the events yesterday. This is it's a long-standing party that is disappearing down the plug hole, and lots of people are saying actually Reform are the real Conservatives, the party of real common sense, who can get us back on track, who can make Britain better off, and they're abandoning ship of the sinking Tory ship. That's what's happening.
Yeah. A lot of people saying to me, actually, it's Boris Johnson who killed it off. That Boris Johnson, you know, he was famously interviewed last week or the week before by Harry Cole, and people were saying, oh, is it time for Boris Johnson to come back? And I was really surprised by the vitriol that faced him from my viewers and listeners who said, no, we absolutely don't want Boris Johnson back. He completely betrayed us. He completely destroyed every hope that we had ever in leaving the European Union properly, and he completely kiboshed our immigration policy. And so he actually is now being blamed for creating the demise of the Tory party.
Without question, he has created a toxicity of voters' views. I see it in my inbox, letters, when we're out campaigning, talking to voters. People say it all the time, please don't let Boris anywhere near the House of Commons again. And you forgot to mention there, Mike, net stupid zero. Boris was responsible for the significant promotion of this job-destroying, industry-killing, economic lunacy of net zero, which we at Reform, Nigel and I, we've led the way saying this is madness, we've got to scrap it, that'll bring down bills, that'll get economic growth going again. And all of a sudden now the Tories are saying, oh, Tice was right after all. And we got it wrong. Well, they got it wrong on pretty much everything. So that's why people won't forgive and they won't forget.
No, exactly right. And I mean, once again, in terms of the way this government has dealt with anything at all, I mean, we haven't even talked about the economy yet because they've sort of had a bit of a pass over the last week or so because of conferences and one thing and another. But story this morning in the Telegraph, Revolut's billionaire chief executive Nikolai Staronsky, the founder of the company, which is worth 56 billion quid, has decided to leave London for the UAE. And so all these lefties who go, oh, it's not true, nobody's leaving. Well, actually they are. And this guy, who probably, I would imagine, pays several £1 million in tax, is no longer going to be doing so.
Well, regrettably, the UK has become a hostile environment for international investors to do business. And lots of people are saying it's too difficult. It's not worth taking the risk, all the effort. And that's because of what the Tories did, creating more regulations, more wasteful government spending. They increased taxes, and the Labour Party then put that policy on steroids. And, I mean, public spending is almost 45% higher than it was just 5 years ago. Just think about that. That's an increase of about 9% every single year of government spending. And have we seen the benefits of that? Far from it. Productivity is down in the public sector hugely, and the quality of our public services has got worse, as we're suffering the consequences of mass cheap, low-skilled immigration, suppressing British wages, consuming our housing and consuming our public services. It's been an absolute catastrophe, a sort of Boris wave of immigration, large numbers of which have no intention of working, just want to bring their dependents, claim indefinite leave to remain that reform will scrap because of this. And the cost to the taxpayer would bankrupt us. It would be tens and tens of billions of pounds. And we're saying, forget it, we're going to scrap it. And we're the only party that actually will cut government spending.
Yeah. And have you got any faith in Keir Starmer's comments this morning that he said, oh, yeah, I'm going to India, even though we've supposedly got a trade deal already with India. But he says, absolutely no question of me giving any more visas out. I'm not going to be doing that. I mean, you can absolutely guarantee, and you can bet your bottom dollar, I would have thought, that that's exactly what he's going to do.
And when he makes a statement like that, generally, if you bet exactly 180 degrees the other way, you'll be closer to the answer. And I wouldn't trust him as far as I can throw him on a statement like that. I think we know what's coming. They'll dress it up in some form of cuddly language. It'll be sort of a mobility pass or something like that, right. Or a sort of a family-friendly British experience. But sure enough, there'll be rights to extend and stay here forever. That's what's gone on under the Tories. It's what's going on under this Labour Party, and it's a disaster for the British economy and the British people.
Yeah. The only thing that I'm surprised about is that, given that he started off his trip in the cockpit of the British Airways flight, they didn't fly the wrong way and end up in New York instead of going to Mumbai.
I mean, that was just absolutely extraordinary. I mean, really, just utterly, utterly desperate. He needs to learn to smile and just to sort of try and enjoy life. I mean, just ridiculous.
I know, shocking.
Just imagine being sort of sitting somewhere else in the plane and listening to that sort of nasal nonsense coming down. I mean, it'd be like sort of poison coming through the speaker and the air conditioning duct, wouldn't it?
I'd be literally running.
Stop, let it go away.
You'd be running for the door, wouldn't you? You'd be like, no, sorry, I'm going to get another plane. Thanks very much anyway.
You'd be out the back steps.
Exactly. Richard, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Richard Tice, Deputy Leader of Reform UK, of course, saying that, as I said, what on earth is Keir Starmer doing? What's he thinking? We'll play that throughout the course of the morning. Keir Starmer, I'm in the cockpit. Great. Brilliant. Congratulations. Let's get a voice note from Andy on Robert Jenrick.
Morning, Mike. It's Andy from Birmingham. Hope you're well, mate. Yeah, regarding Robert Jenrick's remarks, he's 100% correct, mate. I'm a Brummie. Okay, I don't live in the city anymore, right? But he's 100%. If you drive down there, I drove that way on the way down to West Brom. Unfortunately, I'm a West Brom supporter. And honestly, it's the rubbish and whatever. Years ago, West Indian communities moved in and they sort of they integrate. So it's not about colour at all. It's about that the people that live there now don't integrate. And I'll tell you what, Handsworth is just the top of the, there's a lot more districts around there like Aston, Lascelles, Alum Rock, Smalley, but probably a bit worse than that anyway.
I mean, those are the people who live in Birmingham. Andy there giving us the lowdown on what he sees when he goes down that way every single day. And as you said, it's not about colour. Handsworth's always been an immigrant area. It's always had people living there from elsewhere, and people moved there from the Caribbean, decades ago. It wasn't like it is now. And I think what he's saying is that it's other communities that have somehow made that as bad as it is. According to Birmingham City Council, these are the figures, right? Handsworth is now 25% Pakistani, 23% Indian, 10% Bangladeshi, 16% Black African or Black Caribbean, 10% mixed or other ethnic group, 9% white. And that's why Robert Jenrick said he couldn't see another white face, and he didn't think it was a good thing, and he didn't think it was integration, and he didn't think that that was good for the country. And I think I agree with him, and I'm sure many of you do as well. 0344 499 1000. Let's have a quick look at Chris Philp, a man who you wouldn't have otherwise thought was that interesting, but he came out with something the other day which surprised everybody, and this was about what he did apparently when he was asked what was one of the worst things you did when you were younger. And rather than Theresa May, when she said she ran through a field of wheat, and that was all terribly exciting, he said apparently that O.J. Simpson came to his university at one point when he was a student, and all the American TV networks were desperate to try and find out what he was going to say. And so he recorded him and sold that recording to every single US TV network, told them all it was an exclusive, and made a load of money out of it, which I think puts him in a rather an interesting place. I think, you know, God, goodness me. Anyway, here he is landing some bad jokes during his conference speech.
And I turned to my wife and I said, in your wildest dreams, did you ever imagine you'd be leaving a general election count with your husband having just been elected as a Member of Parliament? She turned to me and replied and said, in my wildest dreams, you don't feature. When Keir Starmer talks about a one-in, one-out policy, it turns out he didn't mean illegal immigrants, he meant Home Secretaries. No wonder Labour spent their conference plotting to replace Keir Starmer, who believes nothing, with Andy Burnham, who apparently believes anything.
Yeah, as Paul Hawksby would say, I wouldn't open with that. 7:37.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham, 7:40. This, of course, is the place to come where the nation comes to speak, and this is, of course, the home of common sense. Hi, if 50% of a Palestinian government were trans women, it would still be 100% men, says Peter. Yeah, I get that. John in John in Little Sudbury is actually retired pilot. He says use of the word cockpit is not allowed now. It has been replaced with flight deck. So he got that wrong. Apparently, it's not politically correct to say cockpit. Keir Starmer, you complete plonker. Let's get a voice note from Kitty on the Chinese spy case.
Morning, Mike. Kitty from Kent here. So first we had Beijing Barry, and now we've got Ping Pong Powell. I just wonder, what exactly does this government have to do to prove to the stupid and the hard-left fanatics and media that they are as corrupt as it gets? They need to fall, they need to go. They are ruining our country. Have a lovely morning.
Yeah, Kitty, they certainly are ruining our country. They're doing it by the hour. You know, Keir Starmer's off in India doing God knows what. Meanwhile, the European Union are trying to challenge us on tariffs, trying to charge us 50% tariffs on steel that we export. 79% of our steel goes to the EU. Meanwhile, as you say, you've got Jonathan Powell, or Pole, as he likes to be known, selling us off to the Chinese. And we're not apparently going after them in a spy case, basically because nobody wants to call them the enemy in a court of law. Extraordinary stuff. Let's talk to Jake Wallace-Simons, though, author of Never Again, How the West Betrayed the Jews and Itself, a new book out this month, we should say. Obviously, yesterday, the anniversary, the second anniversary of October the 7th, that terrible, terrible day 2 years ago where nearly 1,200 people were murdered, raped, set on fire, beheaded, treated like animals, basically, by scumbags who call themselves Hamas. Jake, a very good morning to you.
Good morning.
I was saying earlier, I was quite surprised that Keir Starmer didn't actually appear at any point yesterday. We were told he was going to appear at some vigil or other. I don't know if I'm wrong about this, but I don't think he did appear at any vigil. I don't think he did make any kind of statement whatsoever about October the 7th, the second anniversary.
It's no surprise at all. I mean, I gave a speech at the rally against anti-Semitism a few weeks ago. 70,000 people gathered outside Parliament. We heard from Richard Tice, we heard from Chris Philp, both of whom you've just had on the programme. Yeah. But Keir Starmer didn't turn up and didn't send anybody from his government to address the crowd. A couple of weeks later, he recognised a Palestinian state to jubilation from Hamas, who were not demanded to release the hostages first. The following week after that, he was then lamenting an attack in Manchester, which Hamas presumably were celebrating. And yesterday, October the 7th, rather than see commemorations led by the Prime Minister of that awful jihadi attack against not just Israel, but the civilized world, we saw London and other cities being defaced by Palestine protests, there's no other word for it, celebrating those atrocities. You know, if you cast your eyes over to Berlin, a lot of the monuments, public monuments, were lit up with the Israeli colours, with slogans supporting the hostages, bring them home. We didn't see any of that in Britain at all. It's absolutely shameful. Talk about Keir Starmer in the cockpit. Where's he flying the country?
Yeah, exactly right. And I mean, I saw some footage from outside of King's College in London, not far from where we are here at London Bridge up in Holborn, where they were chanting for global intifada. And by any measure, that's an illegal chant, I would have thought, isn't it? Shouldn't the police be arresting some of these people?
Yeah, I mean, not only that, but there was, I saw yesterday that there was a group that protested outside the BBC and then walked down to Parliament Square yesterday, and they were called Intifada 87. And the police very kindly restricted them from going outside synagogues, as they had wanted to do. But that's not enough. The problem is that these protests have been going on for 2 years. For 2 years, I myself and many other people have been saying, look, they're saying they want to kill us. They're saying it in every single code they can think of. Do something about it, limit it, stop it. You know, the people involved with a lot of these protests, organising these protests from the beginning, have ties to Hamas, which have been widely reported, past ties to Hamas. Some of them have been pictured with Hamas leaders in Gaza. And yet the police have not stopped them, have not limited them sufficiently. And lo and behold, 2 years later, almost to the day, we find the atrocious attack on a synagogue in Manchester on Yom Kippur that claimed 2 lives.
Yeah. I know, it's quite extraordinary, isn't it? We also learned yesterday that the woman who was pictured, we featured this yesterday on the show, pictured cutting down yellow ribbons in North London, in a place called Muswell Hill, which is quite a Jewish community, really. She's been named as Nadia Yalom from North London. She's a Palestinian PhD researcher and artist. It says Palestinian Jewish. I'm not quite sure if that means she's from Israel or not. But she claimed the ribbons were condoning genocide. And again, I don't know whether the police are going to be attempting to question her or what they're going to do.
I mean, I think the part of the problem is that, you know, this is not an isolated phenomenon. Obviously, she's a radical. She's, you know, it's not normal for someone to go out and take down, you know, gestures of support for innocent hostages. That's not normal. But it's part of a phenomenon that's spread across Britain and the West, which is that we've been brainwashed. You know, even last night I was having a conversation with friends on our side of the argument who were saying, yeah, but Israel kills lots of women and children. I mean, it's these sorts of messages that Hamas has successfully got out through our complicit media, largely, and through the UN and our political classes. They've succeeded in brainwashing people to think that actually the problem is not Hamas, the problem's Israel. And that's the message that the Prime Minister gave the seal of approval to when he recognised a Palestinian state without asking the hostages to be released first, as if Israel is all the problem here. And actually, you know, we need to begin to re-find our moral compass and stand behind the democracy that's under attack from jihadism, because they're coming for us next. The Muslim Brotherhood is where Hamas comes from. The Muslim Brotherhood are active in this country. We've had jihadism on our streets. Unless we wake up, we're going to see more of this, more blood on our streets coming from the same source.
Absolutely. Good to talk to you, Jake Wallace-Simons. Thank you very much indeed. New book out, Never Again, How the West Betrayed the Jews and Itself, which is pretty pertinent this week, particularly given what happened yesterday in London, and given what happened in Manchester, given what happened in Edinburgh, and given what happened in other parts of Europe where, as Jake says, they actually commemorated properly the deaths of those people on that terrible day 2 years ago. They had, you know, lights, they had monuments, they had music, they had, you know, vigils, they had candles being lit. You know, we didn't have any of that, and we certainly didn't have the government leading any of that, which is pretty shameful, it seems to me. Spineless Starmer is on his way to India to give away Scotland so we can buy North Sea oil from India, says Joe from Leeds. I mean, I wonder, he might say that. Mick says this, I understand that it's against regulations to have unauthorised people on the flight deck, even trainee flight attendants like Starmer. Yeah, and he called it the cockpit, which apparently you're not supposed to say. Jane in Liverpool says, why was Keir Starmer allowed in the cockpit of the planes in Mumbai? Isn't that against international aviation law following 9/11 attacks and other terrorist incidents? If I'd been on the plane, I would have disembarked. I mean, I think a lot of people would have not been happy to have heard that sound, that ghastly monotone, I'm in the cockpit, have a good flight, I mean, you know, you'd literally be running for the hills, wouldn't you? 7:47.
And even when you say to these people, but, you know, Farage heads a party that's got no political experience, no experience of government, a lot of people just look at it and go, yeah, and could it be any damn worse than it has been for the last few years? And that's why I think right now, and it might not be in 3 years and numbers, that's why I think the Reform are leading the chase, because people are sick to death of what they see as lies, people not keeping their promises, and they're like, do you know what, why don't we just try that? Where can we possibly go wrong, you know?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham, and this is, of course, the home of common sense. It's 7:51 now. We're here till 10 o'clock. Dawn in Kirkcaldy says this: the country is literally clinging on by its fingernails. The people are boiling over with rage, anger and fear, and this moron Prime Minister is yet again run away, playing at being a pilot. It's pretty obvious he has no clue how to run this country. He should do the right thing, go back to the electorate and call an election. We can't hang on any longer. It's dangerous now. A lot of people would like to have an election. Janice in Chester says, morning, Mike, snakes on a plane has a whole new meaning. Very good. Let's get a voice note from Rach on Labour.
I will say this, Mike, as we've gone on over the last year, I don't think any prime ministerial government has ever made this country so depressed. Every morning, without fail, I get up, I look forward to hearing from you, Pete, everybody on the show, but every morning, without fail, I leave the end of the show with a dirty taste in my mouth, because it's just repetitive. It's the same stuff over again. Another bit of sleaze, another issue, another betrayal to the British public. This needs to end before 2029, that's for sure.
Rachel, thank you very much indeed for your message. A lot of people would agree with that one as well. Loads of great messages coming through. We'll get to all of them. We will, I promise you. We've got another couple of hours to do this morning. It is Wednesday, of course. It is what they call hump day in some parts of the world. Simon Calder is here. We haven't spoken to him for ages. I thought, time to speak to Simon Calder and see what's going on in the big wide world out there of travel. Simon, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. Yep, I'm here at the ABTA convention. This is the Travel Association in Magaluf in Mallorca.
Fantastic.
It is a tough gig, but somebody's got to do it. And I'm talking to all the great and good of the travel industry, but I'm also keeping an eye on the Christmas engineering works on the railways, which are going to be quite lively this Christmas and New Year for anybody who, like me, doesn't have a car and rather depends on the trains to work.
Well, this is the trouble, isn't it? Because, you know, people say to me all the time, why don't you just go by train? And I go, well, you know, I went up to Manchester the other weekend to see my son, and, you know, I drove because, you know, you can't rely on the trains. And everybody I know who travels by train on a regular basis, particularly on the Avanti West Coast line, tells me that, you know, you literally take your life in your hands. You don't know whether it's going to be delayed. You don't know whether it's going to be running. You don't know whether there's going to be somebody driving it. You know, you just have, it's literally a lottery now.
Well, there's an awful lot that can go wrong, but the good thing about Network Rail announcing its £130 million programme of refurbishment work for the National Rail Network is that you know that Avanti West Coast trains won't be running sensibly pretty much from Christmas Day, actually, if you're going to the north of Britain, all the way through to the middle of January. There is vast amounts of work going on. Most of it, as you will be aware from our conversations in previous years, everything closes down around tea time on Christmas Eve. Right. Then a fair amount of stuff starts again on the 27th of December, and the Network Rail is keen to stress that 95% of the network will be open. However, an awful lot of people want to travel on the West Coast main line. There's going to be problems in the southern stretch between Milton Keynes and Rugby. There's going to be work going on in Lancashire. And then further north, there's a whole bridge which needs to be replaced over the M6. And actually, the M6 is going to be closed and the West Coast main line is going to be closed in early January. That's going to be exciting. But there is a bit of good news for people like me who have a little more time to travel. There is going to be a diversion train going with Avanti West Coast on the Settle to Carlisle line. This is England's most beautiful railway, and they're actually putting on special trains just looping around all the trouble. So if you've got a bit of time and you want some lovely scenery, then that's the way to do it.
So how do you get there, though? Do you have to go up the east coast and then come across?
Ah, well, that's if you were going all the way from London to Glasgow, that's certainly the way they would send you.
Right.
But otherwise, this is mostly actually intended for people who live in northwest England to get between Preston and Carlisle. But you will be able to get to Preston somehow, and then from Carlisle, well, you'll probably be able to get to Glasgow, but it might involve a little diversion again on a beautiful stretch of line via Dumfries. But allow the best part of a day if you want to be.
I mean, it's a
sure of
pretty
it.
shambolic state of affairs, though, isn't it? If you're basically saying that the whole railway lines around Britain are going to be kiboshed around Christmas, when loads of people want to travel, when loads of people want to visit their families, visit their loved ones, come into airports, get trains, all the rest of it. You know, it's going to be a nightmare.
Well, now you say that, but actually what Network Rail says is fewer people travel over Christmas and New Year than any other time of the year. And you might well say, well, that's because all the lines are closed.
That's a load of old cobblers, that. I don't believe that for a second.
Well, if you look specifically at the numbers, most rail journeys are commuter journeys in southeast England, and those generally don't happen to the same extent.
Right.
However, as you say, intercity journeys, it's when people want to go off and see their loved ones and enjoy those reunions. So it's going to be quite lively. It's not just on the West Coast main line. London-Liverpool Street appears to be contractually obliged to close every time there's a bank holiday. And so pretty much from Christmas Day through to New Year, won't be any trains on the overground line going out from there. If you want to get, for instance, from Stansted Airport to central London, you're going to have to change along the way.
Right.
Stansted
And also, the problem is that Christmas Eve this year falls on a Wednesday, right? So it means pretty much you're going to go from 23rd of 23rd of December, which is a Tuesday. You're going to go all the way through until the following Thursday, or probably the following Friday, actually, which is January the 2nd. So you're effectively 2 weeks with no trains.
Well, lots of trains on lots of lines, but not
not out of Liverpool Street.
In London Waterloo, which used to be the busiest station in Britain, that's going to be completely closed for a few days from Christmas Day onwards, and limited service until the. Yeah, well, but
so you're telling me, so Liverpool Street's closed, Waterloo's closed, the Avanti West Coast Line's closed, anything else closed?
Well, there are odd little bits here and there, but you will still be able to get there if you've got time. And of course, this is when the long-distance coach companies really come into their own. So National Express.
I'm never getting on a coach. I'm sorry.
Well, oh no, they're fine. When were you last on one?
Probably when I was a child, I think.
Right, so that was what, 10 years ago?
Yeah,
I'm guessing.
probably in the last century. I mean, a long time ago. You know.
No, but they're great. You can get all electric buses. They've got Wi-Fi. You can charge your phone up.
It's still a bus. Sorry.
It's a very comfortable.
Listen,
bus.
I didn't get a chance to ask you about the US government shutdown because apparently loads of flights were delayed. We haven't got time, but can you tell us if that's been fixed yet?
Shutdown starting to affect air traffic control, controllers phoning in sick, and then the huge number of federal attractions, national parks, museums closed down because they're not allowed to be open. So it's not a great time to be a tourist in America.
No, it's not. Simon, listen, great to talk to you. I should have left more time. I didn't realise there were that many shutting down scenarios going on, but good to see you. Have a good time in Magaluf. Don't drink any of that dangerous liquid that they give you. We'll be back after the news.
Majesty. Melania and I are deeply grateful to you and Queen Camilla for your extraordinary graciousness. And to William and Kate, thank you so much. It's been so great being with you today. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. It's a singular privilege to be the first American president welcomed here. The phrase special relationship, seen from American eyes, the word special does not begin to do it justice. We're joined by history and fate, and by love and language. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a great honor to be with you.
Security remains the cornerstone of this special relationship. We have the deepest, most advanced defense relationship in the world.
As I said last night, the bond between our countries is like no other anywhere in the world. The United States and the United Kingdom have done more good on this planet than any two nations in human history.
We are working together to end the humanitarian catastrophe in the Middle East.
The one that I thought would be easiest would be because of my relationship with President Putin, but he's let me down. He's really let me down.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's coming up to 3 minutes past 8. It is, of course, a Wednesday, the 8th of October. And I'm not one to give out financial advice, OK? But I know lots of people are sitting there listening to this and watching this show and thinking, what's coming on November the 26th when Rachel Reeves gets up and makes her budget speech in the House of Commons with her little red box and, unfortunately, no glass of whiskey. Maybe we should all have a glass of whiskey when she does it. But I've just been drawn to attention of this. The price of gold reached $4,000 an ounce for the first time ever. A lot of people have been telling me over the course of the last few months that, you know, gold is where you want to be. Obviously now it's quite expensive. So if you're not in it, you're not in it. But an awful lot of people have now given up on putting their savings into shares, into stocks, into anything that's volatile, into cryptocurrency, and they're now just getting into gold, because gold is where the reliability is. Unless, of course, you're Gordon Brown when he sold all the gold off in this country when it was at quite a low price. What an absolute plonker. He was meant to be the Iron Chancellor, by the way. Absolute, complete and utter numpty. Esther McVeigh's coming up. She's the former Minister for Common Sense in the last government. She is still full of common sense, I tell you that. She's been talking to us about the Tory party and the state of play with Kemi Badenoch. She's going to be making a speech this afternoon, which is going to be, in some ways, supposedly her setting out her golden rules to plug the black hole in the economy. She's also going to be trying to convince everyone that the Conservative Party is not actually dead. One story that we haven't really touched upon yet, and I don't know whether any of you want to, is the front page of The Sun, where it says, Ka-ching, £700 motor fees payout for millions, 8.2 billion windfall over dodgy loans. Millions of drivers who unwittingly paid commission on dodgy car deals can each claim back an average of £700. According to the financial watchdog last night, the scheme covers 17 years of mis-selling by motor finance companies. I don't know if I'm involved in that. I don't know if you're involved in it. But if you are, I'd be very pleased to hear from you. You can tell me exactly how it's going to work. How do you get your money? And how do you know that you're even owed any money? That's what I'd like to know. Ministers refuse to help China spying prosecutors, is what it says on the front page of the Times. Britain's chief prosecutor has blamed the government for the collapse of the China spying trial, claiming that it failed to provide crucial evidence despite many months of requests. The Mail goes the same way. China given a free pass to spy on Britain. And the front page of the Daily Telegraph also similarly the same story. CPS says number 10 is to blame for the collapse of the spy trial. What exactly is it that has meant that this government is in thrall to China? Apparently it's all down to the fact that Jonathan Powell, the chief advisor on national security to the Prime Minister, doesn't think it's right for us to call China a threat or a hostile nation or the enemy in a court of law. Absolutely extraordinary. Meanwhile, Keir Starmer's off to India. We'll find out why he's gone there. But also, while he's away, the European Union are threatening to cripple the British steel industry with massive 50% tariffs. I thought we had a deal with them, for heaven's sake. 0344 499 1000. Also, we're talking about the lack of integration in some parts of this country. Robert Jenrick called it out yesterday. He's been called a racist for doing so. I think he's right, and I think all of his critics are wrong. This, of course, is Morning Glory. This from Paula says this. The lack of integration is happening all over the country. In Southall, you barely see a white face, and all the signs in the train station are in their language with English underneath. One of the schools here in West Drayton are attended by non-white children. You can blatantly see the lack of integration because all the Muslims stand and chat together, the English white people stand together, and the Ukrainians and Albanians, etc., also stand together. They don't want to integrate with us. It's just an observation, says Paula. And here's one from Chris in Northumberland. He says, Mike, I remember Lammy making comments about white privilege in the past, as well as complaining about Comic Relief 2019, saying that we don't need any more white saviours. It's a bit hypocritical of him to complain about anyone talking about skin colour. Yeah, well, David Lammy, of course, has been very critical. He's on the front page of The Guardian today of what Robert Jenrick said yesterday. Let's have a listen in a minute to what Robert Jenrick said. But first, let's get a voice note from Mark.
Just look at all these lefties having a go at Robert Jenrick for basically just calling out a fact that you can go to cities and towns in Britain and you don't even see a white face. They seem so triggered by the truth, don't they? They must live in this little unicorn fairy tale world, which is different than the world than the rest of us live in. I mean, it was them that came up with the DEI strategy, which is diversity, equity and inclusion for ethnic minorities. I mean, the fact there being that there's an ethnic minority in the country. So you say to them, well, if there's an ethnic minority, who's the ethnic majority? Ethnic majority? Ooh, let me see. Not sure. Oh, it's a difficult one, that. Ethnic majority. Who's the majority? Oh, not sure. We don't exist. There's no ethnic majority, apparently, just a minority. It's amazing.
Interestingly enough, let's play what Robert Jenrick actually was supposedly hijacked by The Guardian yesterday in saying.
In Birmingham the other day to do a video on litter, and it was absolutely appalling. It's as close as I've come to a slum in this country. But the other thing that I noticed there was that it was one of the worst integrated places that I've ever been to. In fact, in the hour and a half that I was filming with news there, I didn't see another white face. And that's not the kind of country I want to live in. I want to live in a country where people are properly integrated. It's not about the colour of your skin or your faith. Of course it isn't. But I want people to be living alongside each other, not parallel lives. That's not the right way we want to live as a country.
And when he spoke to us yesterday, Robert Jenrick said this.
Yeah, well, I don't resile from those comments at all, and obviously it was The Guardian who stuck them out there.
Of course.
We want to live in a country which is well integrated, where people are living side by side. We don't want segregated pockets of our towns and cities. We don't want ghettos in this country. I want my kids to be growing up alongside their fellow Brits of all skin colours and faiths. And I'm afraid that hasn't happened in recent years. This is a problem that's got worse in my lifetime, not better. In the last 20 years, there have been at least 6 major reports into the integration failures of our country, including by very, very prominent people like Baroness Louise Casey. People don't do anything about it. And then you've got these left-wing politicians, the Labour Party today, journalists like at The Guardian, coming down on people and trying to shut down the debate, labelling them as racist, the same old story, trying to stop people talking about this issue. And I'm afraid at the extremes, this takes the country down a very dark path. Here in Manchester, just last week, you saw a man who'd lived in this country for 30 years, clearly was not integrated, did not share British values, go to a local mosque and kill British Jews. That is where a failure of integration goes in the end. So we've got to have this debate. I'm not backing down. I'm not going to be cowed. That's not my way. I'm going to make sure we keep talking about this.
And so he is. Let's talk to Esther McVey, MP, former Minister for Common Sense. Esther, very good morning to you.
And to you, you always cheer me up, Mike.
Well, I'll tell you what, Robert Jenrick has picked a plum out of a basket and kind of made it into something, because an awful lot of people are very kind kind of galvanised by this story today, because the Guardian sort of tried to out him yesterday as some kind of racist. I saw the coverage on Sky, the BBC, ITV as well, trying to make out that he'd said something terrible. But, you know, my listeners and viewers are saying, no, he's actually said something truthful, and he's highlighted a problem which exists in quite a lot of the parts of this country that very few of us people, generally speaking, go to.
And he talked about integration, and there wasn't any, and it was segregation there. And he talked about where he'd been. It was an observation of what he'd seen, and this is happening in other parts of the country. My husband used to represent a seat in the Bradford area, and we could say the same about Bradford too. And what do these people not want, these Guardian journalists, these lefty journalists? Are we not allowed to talk about what we're seeing with our own eyes, the concerns we've got? Are we not allowed to talk about that? Are these taboo subjects? And haven't we had that for so long and have been at the roots of many problems? People would say the rape gang inquiries weren't investigated because people did not want to talk about different races, religions, different cultures within the country. I think it is refreshing. I think it is positive. I think that is the only way you get to the nub of an issue is by actually talking about something. And yes, if a leak to The Guardian, who thought they were going to expose him as being out of touch and wrong, has been what has shone a light on this, well, good. Because actually I think it's a subject a lot of people do want to talk about and don't want to be cowed from talking about.
No, exactly right. Because it's the kind of thing that leads to where we are right now, you know, where people are putting up flags because they feel like their nation is being assaulted in some way by so many migrants coming here from overseas, not just illegally on the small boats, but also legally coming in to study and overstaying their visas, coming into work, overstaying their visas. You know, it feels for an awful lot of people in this country that Britain is changing before their very eyes, and they haven't been allowed to talk about it. You know, when Gary Neville spoke at the weekend and said, you know, why did I never see any Union Jacks, you know, 10, 15 years ago? People have said to me, because people were too frightened to talk about it. People were too scared to say they wanted to raise a flag, the flag of St George, because they were going to be called a racist. Now they've had enough, and they're starting to revolt.
And there was something about and people talk about it, the metropolitan elite or the Westminster bubble. And it was sometimes frowned upon, as something you wouldn't do, something we don't talk about in polite conversation. And the reality is people want to be proud of their country, and they're seeing this segregation, not integration. And they're now saying, we've been pushed to the limit. And actually, we do want to make a stance. And the stance is, this is Britain, and we are proud of Britain. And they're also sending out a message. If you are here, if you are living and being accommodated in Great Britain, then you too need to be proud of Britain. And you too need to be proud of our history and our heritage and our culture.
Yeah, exactly right. It's not too much to ask, is it? And in fact, even now, we've got the Labour government, because they're running scared of reform, saying that, you know, when people come into this country, they have to speak good English, they have to be free of a criminal record of any kind, they're going to have to be good citizens, they might have to do some decent work around, you know, charities and that sort of thing. You know, so even they have admitted that what they need is decent immigration, not just any immigration.
If you were let into anywhere, a restaurant, a club, a school, a bar, or whatever, you say, this is the rules of our organisation.
Yeah.
And if you want to come here, you need to live by them and abide by them. I mean, if you think, this is a wonderful place to come, well, for it to remain a wonderful place, to be Great Britain, to have the history and the culture that we've got, the tolerance that we've got, then you have to abide by that too. And I don't think that's too much to ask for.
No, I really don't think it is. Let me talk to you about the Tory party conference. I don't know whether you're up there, whether you've been up there. People say to me it's all looking a bit grim, it's all a bit quiet, there's not that many attendees as there normally are, there's no money, there's no sponsors. I mean, is the Tory party dying, I think is the question.
Right, so I've been there every day. I am fortunate enough to live close enough by that I can go in and out and not have to pay those extortionate prices that they do when the party conferences are. So I've been coming back and forth. Right, so I think, yes, you're right, it's quieter. Yes, there are fewer people there. Well, what do you think? We've just had a tonking at the general election a year ago. So, of course, we're rebuilding. However, what I would say, and having been to party conferences for at least 25 years, there is a positive attitude there. So it is a feeling of refresh, renewal, and starting again. So are the crowds smaller? Yes, that is true. But is the mood positive? Yes. And I remember the party conferences of 2001, 2 and 3, and that wasn't so positive. I also know the Labour conference in Liverpool was poisonous because they were looking to oust Starmer. So you know the differences, because there will be groups collecting and talking about different things. I also think that Kemi Badenoch, before we went to the party conference, sort of set out her stall, didn't she, about net zero, this fantasy of net zero and these artificial guidelines. They need to go. They're pushing people into poverty. Our energy prices are higher than pretty much anywhere else in the world. It is not working for us as individuals or businesses. Tick. We've been calling for that for ages, thank goodness. I would have liked it to have been said a year ago, but hey, this is our party conference, she's saying it now. And also talking about immigration, what you've got to do. She's saying, come out of the ECHR, tick, we've needed to say that for a while, and also for me, out of the Human Rights Act, and it's about the economy. So I'd say it was positive, but much smaller numbers. And I had my event last night, which was blue-collar Conservatives, and it was full. We had great speakers, and we did have drinks and some nibbles on, you see. So that was where it was at, the Blue Party, the blue-collar Conservative Party last night.
Okay.
So that's how I viewed it.
All right. Let me ask you about one final thing. I mean, Keir Starmer's off to India. God knows why. He claims he's not going to be offering any more visas to anybody, but you can't really believe a word he says. Meanwhile, the CPS, the place that he used to run, have basically confirmed that number 10, Downing Street, and Keir Starmer effectively blocked their prosecution ability on this China spy case because they wouldn't give them any information. And it all apparently stems from Jonathan Powell, or sometimes known as Jonathan Pole, who didn't want to have to go into a court of law and call China the enemy, and called China a threat and called China a national security issue. So therefore, they just blanked the CPS. And the CPS are now being quite critical, saying Director of Public Prosecution Stephen Parkinson now has revealed that the case collapsed just as it was about to go to trial. Despite being pressed for more than a year, Downing Street declared that they wouldn't give them any help. It seems extraordinary that Keir Starmer, a man who prides himself on his whole, career at the CPS as the public prosecutor, and he keeps talking about how I used to prosecute the bad guys, I know about the law, is apparently not cooperating with them.
Yeah, you've got the right word there, Mike. Extraordinary that a DPP, the current one, is criticising the former one, saying you have held this information and this case has collapsed. So I think this is extraordinary. And then again, Keir Starmer supposedly doesn't know what's going on. He had a fleeting read or a speed read through what was going on. Come on, give me a break. That seems to be his excuse for everything. It doesn't matter whether it was Lucy Connolly. He had a speed read through that. It doesn't matter whether it's this. It doesn't matter whether it was Mandelson. He doesn't know what's going on. And if he doesn't know about things like this, then I have to say, what does he know that is going on? It also sends out a green light here, doesn't it? If the Chinese can spy with impunity, well, they can do it now, they can do it in the future, and it means any other country can spy on this, on our country. And I also don't want to drop Jonathan Powell, drop him in the lurch here, blame him. This is the government's response.
Yeah.
Starmer is always looking to blame somebody else. Now, I'm afraid, Starmer, the buck stops with you. And I'm sure there are things that Jonathan Powell said too, but please, it was the government who didn't give the response. Yeah. And Starmer. So let's all keep pointing. The finger always goes to Starmer, not anybody else. Yeah. And that's why he's still there, isn't he? He's sort of, and now he's fled the country again, which is what we know he does. Keir, never here. Now he's in India, because that's what he does when the going gets tough. He gets going.
He does, and unfortunately it's at our expense as well. Esther, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Esther McVey MP, former Minister for Common Sense, of course, still saying that the Tory party is not yet dead and it's alive and well, and she's very much still a part of it. Got a couple of messages for you. This from Jan and Robin in Addleston. Apparently they're shocked at the news. They won't be able to get anywhere this Christmas. You just heard from Simon Calder saying that, you know, the Avanti West coastline is going to be down, Liverpool Street Station in London down, shut, pretty much for the whole Christmas period. Waterloo, the same. Other parts of the country completely at a standstill. And the advice from Simon Calder from The Independent, a travel guru, says, get a coach. Well, people don't want to get coaches. People don't like coaches. People don't want to travel that way. It takes too long. Good morning, Mike. Regarding Robert Jenrick's remarks, says Anne, so we are now at the point when someone's comments based on what they've seen with their own eyes are viewed as racist. I despair. Brian in Worthing says, morning, Mike. Why is it that every time someone stands up and tells the truth, in this particular case, Robert Jenrick, that certain people throw their toys out of the pram? What he said wasn't racist, just a fact. Why do people have a problem with that? Well, this is the thing. You know, he basically said that he went to a part of Birmingham called Handsworth where he didn't see another white face and he didn't think that was a good thing. Surely there's nothing wrong with him saying that. That's what he saw with his own eyes. And it isn't a good thing, is it? You know, this country's 86% white. Handsworth is 9% white. That tells you an awful lot. This is Talk.
I think he's thick on the basis that he sees it through that lens that somehow, but don't forget, he's talking about the context of the murders in that Manchester synagogue. Yeah. I mean, you know, so of course I think he's completely thick if he thinks that somehow someone like me, that he's worried about the direction of travel of this once great country of ours, that I'm somehow, because I call it out, and particularly those of us that now are doing something about it by way of standing for election, that I'm complicit and an enabler of such things. I would suggest that the enablers are those that are blowing up buses, stabbing people and being terrorists, frankly.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 8:25. I'm Mike Graham. This, of course, is the home of Common Sense, and we're here with you all the way through until 10 o'clock. Let's get a new voice note from James on Starmer.
Morning, Mike. Hope you're well. James from Liverpool here. Just had your clip with Captain Wet Wipe on the flight to India. It very much reminds me, remember the film Aeroplane? He is the equivalent to having Ted Stryker sat next to you. Oh my God, he just gets worse every day. He's a national embarrassment. Have a great day, buddy.
Is that the guy who, when everybody sat next to him, there was literally trying to kill themselves so they didn't have to talk to him? You know, it was like hanging himself, and the other guy trying to set fire to his hair. I mean, it's just ridiculous, isn't it? He is the ultimate kind of negative, isn't he? Everything he touches turns to dust. Everything he touches goes wrong. Everywhere he goes, something happens that's not good. His reputation is down the toilet now. He's now, I think with every week that passes, Keir Starmer is even more unpopular than he was the week before. You know, he's literally taken unpopularity to a new low. He's absolutely broken records right, left and centre. He's the worst Prime Minister we've ever had. He's the most hated Prime Minister we've ever had, and he is literally the most unpopular Prime Minister that we have ever had. And that is in the history of very unpopular Prime Ministers. But talking of unpopular, let's talk about Gary Neville, because today Ross Clark has written in The Sun on page 10, the footy ace has been slammed because of his row about flags. Neville didn't cringe at our flag when it was making him rich, says Ross. And that's the headline. Ross, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us. I mean, even for Gary Neville, who is a man who is odious enough to begin with and relatively, you know, kind of disliked around the world of football just because of his arrogance and because of his inability to kind of see anything but his own opinion, he's managed to upset quite a lot of people in the country by blaming white, middle-class, angry men for everything that's going wrong with this country.
Yes. Well, Gary Neville played 85 times for England in front of crowds which were waving the St George Cross and Union Jacks, people painting their faces to join in the fun. I don't remember him storming up into the stands then to tear down people's flags and so on. But now he's into sort of upmarket property development. He seems to see it rather differently, and demanded that this Union Jack that was flown by some of the construction workers on his big development in Manchester, ordered him to take it down, saying, you know, it's become the preserve of angry white men. In being used in a negative way. Well, if you talk about angry white men, I mean, Gary Neville would appear to fit the bill there himself. But if he was so worried about this sort of flag being used as sort of anti-migrant protest, actually on his site, the Union flag there was sort of one of three, I understand. Yes. One of the others was a Moldovan flag, presumably put up by one of the construction workers who comes from that country. Yes. Very proud of his nationality. Right. But you know, it's peculiarly English, isn't it, to be sort of embarrassed by a national flag.
Well, you make that point very well, that, you know, Norway, the flag is seen on farms. You go to Turkey, huge Turkish flags flying. Germany, national flag flies in allotments. I mean, I remember being in Mexico a few years ago, and there was the biggest flag you've ever seen. It was giant. It was sort of flying just off the coast of Cancun. And it was just, you know, it was visible from practically sort of 10 miles away. And in America, where I visit frequently, you know, outside my sister's house, there's a flag of the United States, the Stars and Stripes. Every house has got a Stars and Stripes flag pretty much flying outside it, and nobody bats an eyelid. They actually don't mind if you don't fly one, but equally they don't think you're weird or right-wing or bigoted or mad if you do.
No, and it's extremely peculiar, isn't it, that the sort of England and flag and United Kingdom flag should be sort of singled out as sort of symbols of racism. I mean, study after study reveals that Britain is one of the least racist places on earth. When people are asked, you know, would you mind having a foreigner living next to you or working alongside somebody of a different race? I mean, fewer British people are bothered by that than in almost any other country in the world. We are one of the least racist countries. So, why is our national flag sort of seen by these sort of liberal lefties as a symbol of sort of racist shame? I mean,
and
it's
oppression,
absolutely
apparently.
bizarre.
Yeah, well, this is it. I mean, I don't really understand the mentality of people like Gary Neville, who seem to think that by putting up a flag of your own country, that it's somehow a provocative act or a controversial act or something that will upset other people. I don't know anyone, actually, who's ever said to me, I'm upset by the sight of a Union flag.
No, well, apart from the sort of liberal left, I mean, who are extremely upset by it. But
no, but I mean, in terms of actual, in my day-to-day, kind of interactions with people, I'm not talking about the nutters who sort of roam the streets looking for a demonstration to join. I don't know anyone who would ever have said to me, I don't like the sight of a British flag or an English flag.
No, exactly, among the sort of general populace.
Yeah.
But it's sort of rather indicative of, where Gary Neville is at the moment. He's now in this sort of upmarket property business. I mean, the minimum price, the cheapest flats in this development in Manchester are 350,000. They're not exactly going to sell to, ordinary football fans, are they? He's sort of fishing around in this sort of rather, market that's dominated by metropolitan types who, like to sort of jump on board this sort of bandwagon of liberal.
Well, as people say nowadays, you have to be rich to be a socialist.
Well, yes, you do have to be extremely rich, and Gary Neville certainly fits in that camp, doesn't he? You have to be able to afford to be left wing now, because I mean anybody sort of further down the food chain finds themselves in a cost of living crisis, being taxed to death and so on. But if you're a multi-million pound footballer turned property developer, well, obviously you're aloof from those.
Exactly right. And of course he gets away with saying it because he says the right thing on the right side of the political divide. Because if he'd said, for example, the problem with Britain is it's being ruined by Islamic fundamentalists who are telling people that they should go and stab Jewish people, and this is going to get a lot worse before it gets better, he'd have been sacked by Sky literally within 10 seconds.
Yes, yeah. Well, he's sort of occupying the sort of Gary Lineker. He is to Sky TV what Gary Lineker was to the BBC, isn't it? The sort of football presenter with the left liberal social conscience. But whether it's former fans, what they make of it, I'm not.
Well, a lot of people are very upset about it, particularly since white middle-aged men are very much the people that have paid for his lifestyle over the course of time. They've gone to football matches, they've bought tickets to see him at various different venues and entertainment scenarios, and also they're the sort of people that pay subscriptions to Sky TV to watch the football. But Ross, a great column. Thank you very much indeed. Ross Clark, columnist at The Sun today, having a go at Gary Neville, footy ace, of course, slammed by many people, including many of you who have written to me, saying what an absolute plonker he really is. Am I the only one who believes Starmer and his disciples are a threat to our national security, says Mick in Wallington. He's an expert at throwing us under the bus. And Mark in Croydon says, just when I thought the onboard safety announcements couldn't be any more boring, they used two-tier boring Keir's voice. I know. Can you imagine that, being on a plane and all you hear is that from Keir Starmer? Let's have a look at what the Sun Letters page is doing.
Letters from the Sun, the page where you tell Britain what to think. For more, visit thesun.co.uk.
And there's an awful lot of letters sent in on the subject of the October 7th attack and the sick joy being sort of celebrated by some ghastly people in this country. Adam in Tyne Weir says, how is it that the pro-Palestine mobs taking over our streets don't seem to see the wickedness of the October 7th attack by Hamas? Yesterday marked 2 years since the terrorist organisation slaughtered more than 1,200 Jews, including children, in its massacre, yet some of their misguided supporters in this country almost treated the 2-year anniversary as a day of celebration. Shame on every very rotten one of them. And this from Alex in Northumberland, Morpeth. It is revolting that hate mobs actually celebrate October the 7th, 2023. Israel suffered the worst slaughter of its people since the Holocaust on that day, and yet to some sickos it's a day for rejoicing. Unbelievable. And Matt in Worcester says this: only sick delinquents could celebrate the vile and cowardly attacks by Palestinian militants on October the 7th. Do these idiots understand anything about the complex history of Palestine and the state of Israel? Obviously not. No, obviously not is right. And it is indeed a stain on our society and a stain certainly on our country that these people could actually even think about going out there and demonstrating on behalf of not just the Palestinian state but of Hamas. They're basically saying that they are happy that Hamas killed people, and they are happy that more brown people as a result have moved into Britain supporting Hamas. And that really is a massive problem. Let's get a voice note from Chris.
So Stan was out of the country going to India, which was obviously pre-planned, so he'd miss any kickback from the 7th of October protests yesterday. But very conveniently, this 50% tariff on steel's come out as well. I can't understand. I mean, he's either the luckiest Prime Minister we've ever had or the unluckiest. Look what we've had in the last few weeks. We've had a terrorist attack. We've had the £750,000 scandal. We've had Angela Rayner. We've had Mandelson. We've had Donkeygate. All these things that would normally bring someone down or certainly put them in the spotlight for weeks, and they just disappear because something else takes over.
You do wonder why he's still there, don't you? I mean, I do. I don't understand how he is still there. I mean, all through the conference, people were saying, you know, there's plots against him here, right, left and centre. Everywhere you look, there's somebody who wants to get rid of him. Everywhere you look, he's got cabinet members revolting against him. Everywhere you look, he's a dead man walking. I don't understand. How is he still there? I don't get it. Kevin in Bristol says, Mike, I had 3 different new cars with finance agreements. I started a claim with the help of Martin Lewis's website, and they came back to me explaining their agreements were not the type that broke the rules. So not everyone who had finance on vehicles can claim. That's on this big story on the front page of The Sun today, which says ka-ching. It's basically PPI on wheels is what they're calling it. Compensation for people, for millions of people, they say, who were somehow missold finance to get a car. Around 14 million finance agreements apparently eligible for a share of an estimated £8.2 billion payout. So you get roughly £700 for your trouble. It's probably worth going after if you don't know if you're eligible. Go and find out. We'll see if we can find out on your behalf. 0344 499 1000. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 8:40. I'm Mike Graham. Morning, Mike, says Carl from Norwich. I'm probably going to buck the trend. I'm actually quite happy these minorities are living in their own areas. It means they're not living around me and causing all the problems that are associated with these areas. I suspect that probably means I'll be labelled as a racist for those views. I bet you there's a lot of people who agree with me, though. Not that we hate anyone. It's more like I'm exhausted with trying to bend over backwards to accommodate. There's nothing left in me, and I'm not trying anymore. I think a lot of people would actually recognise that point of view. Mark in Sheffield says, seen a comment from Lenny the racist Henry saying us the taxpayers should pay all the black nations reparations, repatriations for the slave trade. Well, I want repatriation money for all the white fishermen that were kidnapped off the coast of Cornwall by all the African nations. Get a grip, Lenny, ya plonker. Well, actually, funnily enough, we broke that story inadvertently, unbeknownst to me, because it came up on Plank of the Week last week, and Lenny Henry was nominated by Rafe Heidel Manku. Have a look at this.
He's now written a book in which he says that British taxpayers should pay £19 trillion for slavery and reparations, which is basically the funniest thing he's said since 1983.
It is actually, yeah.
And you know, that's a sum equivalent, larger than China's entire GDP. That's what they want us to pay. Now, I won't get into the details. I've just done a 1.5 hour debate with Kahinde Andrews, the infamous race grifter. Which is out now on YouTube if you want to see it.
Trigonometry, it was very good.
Yeah, thank you. But basically, slavery only made about 5% of the British economy. But all these Marxists like to pretend that there wouldn't have been any industrial revolution. Nothing that Britain has achieved is because of British genius. It's all because of slavery and oppression.
I thought we ended slavery.
We were the first nation in the world to deliberately make ourselves poorer in order to advance a moral good.
And we're still doing it,
But the broader point here, of course, is that these race activists don't care about slavery at all. Because if they really did care about slavery, Lenny Henry would do what he did with Comic Relief and go to Africa and talk about modern-day slavery, where there are 10 million Africans living in Africa today who were slaves, and there are still slave ships going to the Middle East. None of that, of course, is spoken about, which shows you this is really about attacking Britain and the West.
And that's exactly right. We're going to talk about attacking Britain and the West in a moment with Rakib Hassan. This one from Anne, who says, Mike, as someone born in Handsworth, I've got to say Robert Jenrick is 100,000% correct. I'm 76 and my dad got us out when I was 9. Went back some 14 years ago and thought I was in a third world suburb. And Steve says, if Jenrick spent time in Handsworth and didn't see a white face, then he's just stating a fact. And the question has to be asked, why has the resident British white population abandoned all these areas in so many cities? Well, this is a question, I think, for Dr. Rakib Hassan, who's a good friend of the show, of course. He wrote a piece in the Telegraph yesterday about why it's not bigoted or divisive to point out that a lack of integration in this country, in some parts of the country, has taken place. It's a fact, right? I mean, look at that. 57,638 people on the migrant tracker have come here illegally on small boats since the beginning of Keir Starmer's prime ministership, right? 34,396 now since the beginning of this year alone. Where are they all going? And when they go to where they're going, how does that affect the place where they are going to? Let's find out. Rakib, a very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike. How are you?
Yeah, very well indeed. Good piece of the Telegraph yesterday. I mean, you know, the media in the likes of Sky and the BBC and ITV were getting the knickers in a right old twist about this, saying, you know, Robert Jenrick's a racist. He's talking about how you can't see any white people in places in Britain. Well, I'm sorry. One, he's telling the truth, and two, it's his own lived experience, which they're always telling us about as a good thing. And three, it is a problem.
No, absolutely no. The Shadow Justice Secretary claimed that Handsworth was one of the worst integrated places he'd ever visited.
Yeah.
And the data that emerged from the 2021 England and Wales census very much supports that. So if you look at Handsworth, in Birmingham, there's one neighbourhood within Handsworth, Mike, when the residents were asked, what is your national identity?
Yeah.
In terms of what do you consider to be home? Where do you feel you belong to? 55% of those residents expressed a non-UK national identity, a national identity that had absolutely nothing to do with the UK. Right. And that's not necessarily a surprise, Mike, because when you look at Handsworth, there's a swathe of neighbourhoods where 1 in 5 residents either cannot speak English very well, if at all. And I think that comes to my point, that without a decent command of the English language, how could you possibly integrate yourself into mainstream civic life in Britain, interact independently with public services, and engage with others who don't speak your native tongue. So I think that there are very serious problems, not just in Handsworth. I'd actually say some parts of Birmingham might be even worse integrated in some ways.
Indeed, and it's not just Birmingham. I mean, we know that there's parts of Bradford that have got problems, there's parts of Manchester, there's parts of Rochdale, Bury, an awful lot of those northern towns, particularly where, funnily enough, they had a lot of the grooming gang problems. You know, an awful lot of those constituencies, if you like, have got, you know, Pakistani heritage councillors, Pakistani heritage sort of residents, Pakistani heritage police, and it's all going horribly wrong.
No, absolutely. I think that when it comes to the remarkable cultural and demographic change that we've experienced in the UK, there's many places which have been very much affected by that, some of the places that you've mentioned there. And I think that in a way, we were having these conversations between us two 5-6 years ago, but some of these conversations were being had at the turn of the century. I remember there was the Community Cohesion Review by Professor Ted Cantle. He talked about this, you know, the existence of parallel societies, communities living side by side with very limited social contact and interaction. And some of these areas, in some ways, the situation has become even worse. That segregation has become consolidated economically, socially, and residentially. And I think that many of our politicians, they're away with the fairies, really, when they're describing us as sort of a vibrant, multicultural democracy. They don't really know what's at stake here, especially from an integration perspective.
Yeah, I think that is really the problem. But nobody seems to know what to do about it, because once you've got a community that has become so kind of self-absorbed and so kind of self-determining, if you like, you know, you can't really change it. You can't really suddenly parachute a load of white people in, can you?
No, absolutely, and I think I'd make this point that you can't have some kind of forced social engineering here in terms of making neighbourhoods mixed. I think that a big part of the, not so much the issue, but when we're looking at this phenomenon of segregated communities, there's been a great deal of white flight. But if the truth is that if certain areas have changed so much culturally and demographically, I don't necessarily blame the native population in terms of leaving that particular area. Equally, there'll be ethnic groups and religious groups. They'll favour neighbourhoods where they have specific cultural and religious amenities, for example, access to the halal butchers or a local masjid. So I think the truth is that some of this segregation, unfortunately, is here to stay. So I think the best we can do is that how can we have a situation where communities at the moment, they have limited social contact. How can you increase that contact? And in some ways, how can they possibly find common ground under very difficult circumstances?
Yeah, absolutely right. Rakib, great to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. You can find his piece on the Telegraph website, of course. Rakib Hassan, social policy analyst there, talking about why Robert Jenrick was right to say what he said. If Jenrick spent time in Handsworth and didn't see a white face, then he's just stating a fact, says Steve. And the question has to be asked, why has the resident British white population abandoned all these areas in so many cities? And one here from Jeffrey, who says, I just read the Telegraph report about the BBC's email to staff about the 7th of October and apologising for their mistake. What a shambles the BBC is. Keep up your great work at talkTV, says Jeff. Yeah, this is the BBC who sent out an email to staff to talk about the commemorations and the various things they were doing about the 2-year anniversary of the 7th of October. And they put the wording that they used was so ridiculously wrong that they had to send out an apology, because they talked about the escalation of the conflict between Israel and Gaza on the 7th of October, as opposed to the bleeding massacre of 1,200 Jewish people, innocent Jewish people, by Hamas. Absolutely extraordinary. 0344 499 1000. Coming up, we're going to speak to Councillor Caroline Clapper, who defected to Reform UK, one of 22 Tory councillors who defected to Reform, all on the same day, yesterday. This is Talk.
we don't know what Arif Ali Rafiq is pleading to this charge, but you know what everybody thought. These are both retaliation attacks, religious retaliations, revenge attacks for the Islamist terrorist assault on the synagogue last Thursday. Well, at least in one case, we have reason to believe that assumption, jumping to that conclusion, was wrong.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham. It's 8:53, coming up to the final hour of the show, of course. We're still awaiting some news from Keir Starmer's trip to India. We thought we might have some film footage for you, but we haven't got any yet. We understand he's visiting a Hindi film set somewhere in Mumbai, which is great news, isn't it? He's managed to find time to do that. He's managed to find time to get himself recorded in the cockpit of the plane before it took off from Heathrow. But what he hasn't done, of course, yesterday is make any kind of appearance with regard to the second anniversary of October the 7th. He put out a statement yesterday about it, but he didn't mention Hamas, he didn't mention Muslims, he didn't mention Islam. All he said was it was a terrible day for the Jewish community. But we are yet to see whether he's going to have any kind of, candlelit vigil for the hostages. We're told that Hamas are currently in the midst of exchanging hostage names under Trump's latest ceasefire plan, which means that they'll be telling you who it is that they've got in captivity, and presumably which ones of those people in captivity are actually still alive. Which would be, of course, music to the ears of many of the relatives who've been waiting now for over 2 years to know what's happened to their loved ones. It's an absolutely appalling situation. We'll keep you updated on all of that as we go forward through the next hour. Right now, though, it's time for 90 Minutes in 90 Seconds.
90 minutes in 90 seconds from The Sun.
And for some football fans, of course, it's that dreaded time where you go into international week, and that's kind of where we are. Samuel Lockhurst joins us, Manchester United correspondent of The Sun. Samuel, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. Thank you for having me on.
Not at all, international week, but some strange selection choices being made, we understand.
It certainly is. With Jude Bellingham out of the England squad, that's a big story, and it's continuing to be a big story. Jordan Henderson spoke to colleagues yesterday. England are very good like that, and that'll player will chat every day. And Henderson has a very good relationship with Bellingham, but there is a risk that he could be nabbing his place, where obviously they're two central midfielders. At one point, it looked like they might have united to play for Liverpool, but Bellingham ended up going to Real Madrid, and Henderson's back in the Premier League now and back in the fold. But it's still pretty seismic that Bellingham, Real Madrid player, Champions League winner, was omitted from the squad when he is fit, and he has been playing for Madrid.
Yes, I mean he had a shoulder injury, didn't he? But he's been back. He's back for a while.
He has, yeah. He had surgery in the summer. He has played a hell of a lot of football, given that he came into the Birmingham City side at such a young age when he was 16, I think it was, nearly 6 years ago. So he's had quite the career so far, and I think the relevant comment, of course, is that Thomas Tuchel, the England coach, said that his mother found Bellingham's behaviour repulsive. He said that a few months ago. So that's quite an incendiary, loaded word, and then Bellingham's left out the squad when he is fit. So it's strange that Tuchel could have kept his powder dry. He could have done himself a favour by just bringing Bellingham back in, but he certainly caused more of a storm by leaving him out of the squad.
OK. News that Arsenal might be moving into Wembley again for a while they expand their stadium, is that right?
Indeed. Arsenal played at Wembley when they re-entered, first played in the Champions League in the late 90s and early 2000s. Tottenham, of course, done it more recently whilst their stadium is being built. The Emirates Stadium is an interesting one because it's not that old a stadium. It's only 19 years old. But I think for fans or certainly journalists going there are parts of it that have dated quite quickly, which other fans, they'll always use that as an argument. Why would we want a new stadium when they can age quickly? But it sounds like Arsenal, who obviously that they're doing well, they've become a force again in English football, although they've not won a trophy for more than 5 years. But they want to, of course, capitalise on that. And Mikel Arteta is really intent on building a greater atmosphere at the Emirates Stadium. And they have got the scope to expand it, but it will obviously have to take a fair bit of time if they would relocate to Wembley.
Sure. And finally, Steven Gerrard, maybe going back to Rangers, but he's talking about the golden generation today.
He is. He's been on Rio Ferdinand's podcast, and normally if a former player does that, it's because they're after a new job. They want a bit of exposure. They want to put their name forward again. And, of course, topic turns to old news, which is their days in England where those two would not have been close, and they openly admit that because one played for Liverpool, one played for United. But, of course, when players retire and there are media opportunities, they become closer and they become friends, as you've seen with other Manchester United and Liverpool players. And with Gerrard, he did underachieve. Ferdinand underachieved at international level. Those days under Svenora and Eriksson almost looked like halcyon days for a period up until Gareth Southgate, because England did get to 3 consecutive quarter-finals, and there was that real lull period until Southgate came in. So it's strange how it works, but they clearly did underachieve given the talent at their disposal.
Yeah, absolutely right. Good to see you. Thank you very much. Samuel Luckhurst there, Manchester United correspondent at The Sun. That was, of course, 90 minutes in 90 seconds.
90 minutes in 90 seconds. From The Sun.
Lots more news coming up in the next hour. Kevin Hollingbrake, MP, Conservative Party chairman, will join us for the Manchester Conference of the Tories. We'll also be talking as well to one of the new Reform councillors, Caroline Clapper, who has defected from the Tory party, one of 22 who did it yesterday. Of course, there's loads and loads of you getting loads of messages to come, and of course, we've got all of them here. Looking forward to the Avanti Christmas replacement bus service from London to Glasgow, says Steve in Sussex. And Max in Somerset, well, there's a surprise. Keith Starling choosing to take flight to India on the 7th of October, missing in action yet again. Well, that is the problem, isn't it? This is Morning Glory. Keep your calls coming in. We'll be back after the news.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yay!
8722, start your message with the word talk. Who would you send to space and why?
The person I would love to send to space would be Mr. Keir Starmer. And then I would tell the Galactic Empire that he was part of the Rebel Alliance and let them blow him away with the Death Star. No Brits was involved, no fingers could be pointed.
You carry on taking the medication, George. Yes, I'd send all the Labour government to space with a one-way ticket and throw in the SNP for being useless. They're all a bunch of... Oh, all right, fair enough.
One person, quite frankly, I think needs to go to space in a one-way journey is Jeremy Kyle. He goes on about his age one more time, how he's 60 this year, he was 59 last year, repetitively over the course of the weeks and months. We have to hear him, I'm 60 this year, I'm 60 this year.
Richard Tice, did you put that cheeky bugger up to that?
I'm hoping he's going to send me the invoice because that was absolutely brilliant.
Which MP would you send to space?
Although I get in terrible trouble if I answer that. But it's fair to say there's quite a long list.
The sad thing is about sending people into space on a one-way ticket is I don't think that we've built a spaceship big enough to take the lunatics off this planet. I mean, from the net zero loonies to the transgender loonies to the racists to the terrorists, there is just so much to the wokerati. We need some big spaceships.
Big spaceships.
Good evening. I never know how you're going to start this conversation, Jeremy.
Katy Perry went to space today, OK? Who would you send... I'd love her to say what I wanted to, but I'd never disrespect her. Who would you send to space who could never come back?
Well, I'd be happy to send Ed Miliband to space, I think.
Oh, that is an outrageous question, so I'm not even going to answer that question.
Sam Matterface, do you get the job, yeah? Go on.
No, Sam Matterface, I tell you what... There's no.
I think David Lammy would be the person I'd want to send up in space and never come back again.
Yeah, the problem is how much would the bill be for him to munch through whatever food on the way there?
Hey, it worked.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. Coming up to very nearly 3 minutes past 9. It is Wednesday, the 8th of October, of course, and here we are with you for another 1 hour to go. We're going to speak to Kevin Hollingbeck, MP, Conservative Party Chairman, up at Conservative Party Conference. We've been going up there for the last 2 days. This is day 3, and today, of course, is the day that the leader, Kemi Badenoch, makes her speech setting out exactly what she wants to do if she was ever to become Prime Minister. She's going to set out a golden rule to cut spending and borrowing, according to the front pages of the Times and the Telegraph. She will promise to prioritise reducing the deficit over cutting taxes and ensure a future Tory government lives within our means. She says it's going to be a new golden rule. The Tories will promise that at least half of anything saved through spending cuts will go towards reducing government borrowing, which now stands at £84 billion a year. I mean, £84 billion a year. Forget about the so-called black hole of £22 billion. This is now practically 4 times as big as it was when Rachel Reeves became Chancellor in July of last year. Meanwhile, the front page of The Sun talks about £700 being made payable to every single motorist in this country. Not quite every single motorist, but an awful lot of people who may have had commission on dodgy car deals when they basically got finance to buy a car. £8.2 billion has been made available for around 14 million finance agreements that were made, in some cases, in error, it says here. One driver in line for Compo said he is welcome, but the scandal should never have happened. You might be in line for £700. I don't know if you are. If you are, you might be celebrating that very much so today. Also, China on the front pages as well. Front page of the Daily Mail. China given a free pass to spy on Britain. This is the case that we spoke about yesterday. The CPS, the Crown Prosecution Service, very unhappy with Keir Starmer and the government. And number 10, they say they blocked any information process being made available to them. They wanted to prosecute these 2 individuals who they thought were spying for China, but because there was a fear from Jonathan Powell, the National Security Advisor, and the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, that we would be calling China our enemy in a court of law, it was thought it was best not to go ahead with that. Absolutely extraordinary stuff. We'll find out what that's all about. And also, Robert Jenrick, he was on our show yesterday defending himself against accusations that he was fueling toxic nationalism. Believe it or not, David Lammy, the former Foreign Secretary, now Justice Secretary, came out yesterday, says Jenrick is judging people based on the colour of their skin. He said he went to Handsworth in Birmingham and didn't see any white people and didn't think that was a good thing for Britain. Zach Polanski, of course, the Green Party leader, has now said that it's racist, what he said. But Zach Polanski shouldn't be paid any attention to, because he's a man that used to spend his time convincing women that he could enlarge their breasts by simply hypnotising them. I can't believe this bloke's in charge of a political party, can you? 0344 499 1000. Meanwhile, the European Union is going to cripple the British steel industry by putting 50% tariffs on it. And Keir Starmer's in India. What more do you want to know? This is Talk. Stephen Ipswich says, morning, Graham. Not the best way to start a message, to be honest. He says, I hit the lofty age of 66 at old age retirement on July 4th of this year. I was so excited as I'd worked since I was 16 and worked shifts for 46 years. But having endured over a year of Starmer and his clowns, it looks like I'm going to have to get another job, at least part-time, to survive financially. I'm so disappointed. Well, that must be dreadful. I mean, so many people, of course, have had to put off their retirement because they know that there isn't enough money in the pot for them, and so they're having to work later and later and later on in life. You know, most people used to think, by the time I get to 65, I'll be probably fine. I'll be able to, you know, put my feet up, relax, not have to work anymore, and just live off either the state pension or what monies I've managed to put away for myself. But unfortunately, most people now don't have the opportunity to do that. This one from Andrew, who says this, Mike, I have to say, I listened to Robert Jenrick yesterday, so have a politician stand and own his statement, which was a correct statement, is a breath of fresh air, and his speech was great too. Great stuff. Keep up the good work. And Stuart says, morning, Mike. Our friend Mr Starmer does not want to be seen supporting the Jews in any way, as the Labour Party is already losing the Muslim vote. Well, I've got some bad news for you, because I'm going to play you a little clip of Keir Starmer, because he went, of course, to India yesterday on October the 7th after not appearing at all in public, not appearing to in any way show solidarity with the Jewish communities that he claims he wants to protect in this country, not showing solidarity with the families of the hostages, not in any way doing anything publicly that looked as if he was being sympathetic to Israel. And I wonder why that was. I wonder what that would be for. But have a look at this, right? He gets on a British Airways plane and suddenly decides he wants to drive it.
This is the Prime Minister. I'm in the cockpit, and a very warm welcome to BA Flight 9100 to Mumbai. It's really fantastic to have you all on board. This is the biggest trade mission to India that the UK has ever sent. So I'm much looking forward to working with you as we explore all of the opportunities and take full advantage of the opportunities in our new free trade agreement. So safe flight, everybody. Enjoy the flight, and I'll give you further information once I've taken off. Thank you.
Excellent. Fantastic. A natural. Did you say when I'm taking off?
Yes.
Yeah, finally fulfilling his dream of being a trolley dolly. Yeah, thank you very much indeed, Prime Minister. Can you get us 2 packs of crisps and a coffee while I'm waiting to take off? Thank you very much. Let's talk to Kevin Hollingbeck, Conservative Party Chairman, MP, of course, up there at Conservative Party Conference in Manchester. Kevin, very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike.
I said earlier, it's surprising that Keir Starmer's in the cockpit, which apparently is not supposed to be called the cockpit anymore. It's supposed to be called the flight deck. I'm surprised the plane went in the right direction and didn't make some kind of U-turn over the channel and ended up in Iceland.
My God, I bet the passengers were panicking when they heard Keir Starmer's voice coming over the channel. It must have been, God almighty, a frightening thought. But yes, well, hopefully for the passengers' sake, they got a safe landing. But that's not what the UK economy is seeing right now.
No. Well, I mean, the UK economy is taking a terrible battering. There's also a couple of news stories around that you thought you might want to have addressed, you know, to wit. One, where the CPS, the place he used to run, have taken umbrage at what the government have done about this Chinese spy case. They're saying that the government, and Keir Starmer in particular, and Number 10 in particular, have been particularly unhelpful in trying to prosecute these 2 individuals because they don't want to apparently call China an enemy in a court of law. That's one story. The other one is on the front page of the Telegraph today. The European Union threatening to cripple the British steel industry with 50% tariffs.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible, the story on the Chinese spy story. I mean, the man's got no backbone. He needs to stand up for this country. That's why we need a leader like Kemi Badenoch. You know, really, it's not the first time either he's failed to stand up for Britain against China. We've seen this with the Chinese super embassy in the heart of London, which could be very damaging to the UK's national security, and he's been warned against it by the security services, yet still he ploughs on regardless, because he can't get any growth from UK businesses because he's crashed business confidence. So he's cozying up to the Chinese, and in a way that's very damaging to our national security. Just completely hopeless. We need a leader with backbone. That's why we need Kemi Badenoch.
Well, a leader with backbone she may be. She's going to make a speech this afternoon, but there does seem to be a feeling, generally speaking, in Britain, Kevin, that nobody's really that interested in what the Tories have got to say at the moment.
I get that. Listen, we're only just over a year after a very clear defeat of the Conservative Party, and rightly or wrongly, although we did some good things in 14 years, we made some mistakes. That trust, which is the currency of politics, takes some rebuilding. The way that Kemi's decided to do that, and I think I support this, is take her time to develop policies to make sure they are affordable and deliverable, and that's what we've seen this week from Kemi. We've seen this plan for a stronger economy and stronger borders. That's the right thing to do. Stronger economy in terms of controlling public spending so we can cut taxes and cut debt. Stronger borders in terms of our departure from the European Convention on Human Rights. She hasn't taken a knee-jerk approach to this. She's got Lord Wolfson, who's one of the most senior legal minds in the country, to look at this, and he's decided the only way we can control our borders properly and stop those small boats is by leaving the European Convention, and that's what she said she'll do this week, and I completely support that. So I think over time people will start to listen to us more and see that we are serious, but also our plans are deliverable, and that's what people want to see, a leader that will stand up for this country.
But, of course, you've got a problem, haven't you, Kevin? Because an awful lot of people in the Tory party who were in the Tory party are no longer in it. You know, I'm told there's 900 less people, fewer people up there at this conference this time than there were this time last year. You had 22 Conservative councillors defecting yesterday to Reform. You've got, you know, more and more Tory voters leaving the party and joining Reform. You know, how are you going to stop that happening?
Well, actually, the conference is a very good conference, very positive, upbeat and optimistic. I think you saw a peak in numbers last year because of the leadership contest, and that attracted lots of attention, including media attention. But there's no doubt we need to make sure we can communicate with the public and they can see that we're a proper Conservative party again, there were proper Conservative values and policies. Kemi is a true blue. You'll see that from her policies. You'll see an increasing drumbeat of announcements. There's proper Conservative policies that people will be persuaded again. We're the only party that will both control the borders, get those stronger borders, but crucially, a stronger economy. You get a stronger economy by controlling public spending. No other party is going to control public spending like the Conservatives. No other party is going to make sure that small businesses at the heart of our plans, like the Conservatives. We've got to make that case. I'm very keen to make that case to you today and to your viewers, and we need to do that time and time again, and I think over time people will trust us and people will come back to the Conservatives, be that membership or be that voters.
But I speak to a lot of Conservative voters, former Conservative voters, who say to me very, very frequently, Kevin, that they won't ever vote Tory again. How are you going to get them back?
Well, exactly as I say, Mike, it's about setting out a clear message, as we've done this week, those stronger economy, stronger borders. It's about repeating it incessantly, as I'm doing today on your show, but also having the policies that underpin that. And that from that, as people will come to that message and believe it is only the Conservative Party will do all those things, that will properly control public spending. You see some very influential people that have joined the party this week. Matthew Syed, who is a very well-regarded commentator, who says only the Conservatives will balance the books, that will live within our means, and that's critical right now. And I think the more people see our spending plans, see our tax plans, reducing tax, but reducing spending, making sure of that stronger economy, but also will protect our borders. And so that's the job in hand, that clear message. And I think when people understand that message and believe in it, I think more people will come back and vote Conservative, join our party and persuade others to do the same. And that's how we win back. It doesn't happen overnight, Mike. It's a long road. There's hard yards we need to do, but I see there's a real appetite from my Conservative colleagues here, from those members that are here, to go out and do that. I'm very excited about the future. And I really do believe that the only answers to this country's problems are by voting for a Conservative government.
Yeah, and I'm sure you do believe that, but the trouble is that the only evidence that people have got about how you would control the borders is that how you didn't control the borders when you were in office and how you didn't control the economy. And I know you were better at the economy than the Labour Party were, and I'll give you that, because they've completely lost the plot, and we've now got, as we say, an £84 billion deficit that sits like a huge, carbuncle on the state of the nation. But the problem is that, you've got a track record and it's not very good. And that's the one that they see. And for all the promises that you make, I think an awful lot of people are sick to death of hearing promises that don't get kept.
I understand that. We did make some mistakes on migration. I think when we finally got the levers of migration, when we left the European Union, as we did, and the Conservative Party did make sure we delivered on Brexit, but those rules were too lax. They were too generous in terms of allowing people to come into this country legally. We changed those rules, and that has had an effect. And Kemi Boydnocker says she'll be even tougher in terms of the rules to reduce migration to minimal levels. That's legal migration. On illegal migration, of course, those small boats, that was a fairly recent phenomenon, about 2020 onwards. We legislated for that, including the Rwanda plan. We opposed every turn on that by the Labour Party, by the Liberal Democrats. We finally passed that legislation. What did Labour do as soon as he took office? It scrapped it. That was a huge mistake. You do need to make sure that if people come to the UK from another country illegally, they are deported back to their own country or back to a third country, a safe country, and that's what we passed with the Rwanda plan, and we'd do so again.
Yes, no, and I agree that they didn't give that a chance, and maybe if they had given it a chance, it would have been a smarter call. But we are where we are, and overall, I think, you know, the momentum would appear to be with one man, and that one man is called Nigel Farage. Have a look at what Kemi Badenoch does when she's asked about him.
I admire Nigel Farage as a politician.
On what basis?
Do you admire him?
I don't understand your question.
Well, it's just an open question.
Well,
what do you think of him?
Why aren't you asking if I admire Keir Starmer or Ed Davey?
Well, I asked Keir Starmer about whether he admired Nigel Farage as well.
And I think it's very interesting that a lot of the media in Westminster is very interested about asking about Nigel Farage. I'm not interested in Nigel Farage. I'm not interested in talking about Nigel Farage. You tell me that people aren't interested in me. I'm on your show. Ask me about what I think. You spent most of the interview asking about reform. Reform's already had their conference back.
Is it making you cross that I'm doing this? Because you seem irritated.
No, it isn't. I just think that your viewers want to know what I'm offering.
So, I mean, my viewers this morning have thought that's a bit of a strange reaction to a question. If you don't like Nigel Farage, just say so. If you don't admire him, just say so. Why do you pretend that you don't want to talk about him? You've got to talk about him, haven't you?
I'm happy to talk about him. And, you know, over the years, I have met many slick salesmen like Nigel Farage, and I very much admire their presentational ability, but you've got to scratch beneath the surface. And, you know, Nigel Farage is making promises he can't deliver upon. He's spending promises £140 billion a year. Now, you pointed out earlier, Mike, we've already got a deficit of 80 billion. That's just for current spending. Yeah. Actually, when you have the whole deficit, the increase in debt every year is about 150 billion pounds a year. So you're into a deficit that's 300 billion pounds a year if people vote for reform. It's simply unaffordable, simply undeliverable. It's classic Nigel Farage. He's that one-man band. He'll say anything to please anybody. It's simply not deliverable, and people need to understand that. And we'll keep making the case why that is the case. But of course, presentationally, very good. In terms of deliverability, not very good at all. Simply impossible.
OK, well, we'll see, and we'll find out in the fullness of time. Kevin, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Kevin Hollinrake there, Conservative Party chairman, convinced that they're very optimistic in the Tory party. They'll somehow get back into power. I'm not so sure anybody would share that view. We shall see. Let's talk now to Councillor Caroline Clapper. She's one of the people that defected from the Conservative Party yesterday to Reform UK, was a Conservative councillor for Hertfordshire County Council, Watling Division, and now isn't. Let's see what she makes of it all. Councillor Caroline, very good morning to you.
Very good morning. Thank you so much for having me on.
No, not at all. Thanks for joining us. What did you make of what Kevin Hollinrake said there? He's basically saying that, you know, he wants the electorate to give him another chance. He's very optimistic about the Conservative Party's ability to sort of bounce back. I'm saying that I don't hear that from many people that I speak to, and I certainly don't hear it from many of my listeners and viewers, many of whom used to vote Tory and who say they'll never vote Tory again.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really difficult. You know, for me, it was a very difficult decision. I've been a loyal Conservative for, you know, decades and decades. And, you know, I suppose the way I look at it is we had 14 years in government. I think towards the end of government, certainly during a lot of government, the Tory party weren't delivering. For the past year, they've been in opposition, and I would say opposition against what I deem to be a really terrible Labour government. And I just don't think they've done anything in opposition. And then all of a sudden you've seen, you know, conference week, which, you know, every party is going to have a conference bounce, that's expected. But all of these policies being brought out at the last minute. And to me, they've all just seemed like a carbon copy of exactly what Nigel Farage is saying. So, you know, it kind of, in some ways, smacks a bit of desperation and doesn't really show a vision. It just shows a party that's, you know, trying to be heard, and I don't think anyone's listening.
No, and they seem to have been very slow out of the blocks, don't they? As you say, I mean, the Starmer government is about as bad a government as we've had for a very long time, and it seems as though every single day they sort of serve up a menu of complete and utter hopelessness and come up with some more garbage that nobody wants. And I mean, we have a great time here on my show because we come in every day and go, what's he going to come up with today? Surely it can't be any worse than yesterday, and it always is. And yet the Tories don't seem to know how to react to it.
Yeah, I completely agree. That's been one of my big frustrations that, you're watching what's going on a daily basis and you want to see some really strong opposition. Nigel Farage seems to be the only person that's providing any sort of opposition, and they're not even the party of official opposition. So I think, people want change. People want to see this government be properly scrutinised at the moment. It deserves to be scrutinised. Any government deserves to be scrutinised, and everyone deserves an effective opposition.
Yes, and don't you think also there's a bit of a thirst at the moment for something new? People are a bit fed up with what they're calling the uni party. It's the Tories, it's the Labour Party. There's not really much difference. There's not much to choose between them. They're both, equally kind of hopeless at running anything, it would seem. And as much as, the Reform Party are sort of untested and they haven't really run government before, they are people who have run things. They are people who have got more experience of what I would call the outside world, as many councillors have got, And it just seems as though there's a sort of a sense that the country wants something different now.
Yeah, I really feel that. It was just the energy and the enthusiasm that I've noticed from people within the Reform Party, people who volunteer, people that have even contacted me that have never been engaged in politics in their whole life.
Yeah.
Some of them haven't even voted before, and they're saying, not only, am I supportive, but I want to get out there. I want to help. People do have an appetite for change, and you're right. Reform haven't been in government before, but they've got 3 years to get themselves into shape, and I really think they're going to be well enough organised to be able to govern effectively by the time comes, because people don't want more of the same.
No, I think that's right. And did you have any conversations with the Tories before you left, or did they try and stop you from going, or what did they say?
I've had conversations with a lot of colleagues and said, I'm not happy with the state of the party. I'm not happy with the level of opposition. I'm not happy with the policy. But I think it boils down to something a bit deeper than that, which is I've held the same values my entire life. Since I was a teenager, I've held the same values. My values haven't changed. I couldn't even tell you what the Tory party stands for and what their values are. So, for me, I don't really feel like I've left the Tory party. I feel like the Conservative Party has left me and left many others.
Yeah, and obviously you're one of 22 councillors who defected yesterday. It feels like that's the beginning to me. It feels like there's going to be a lot more as sort of the time goes on through the rest of the year.
Yeah, I mean, at the risk of sounding like a soundbite, you can kind of feel this turquoise tsunami that seems to be flowing. I can certainly see that from the messages I've received. I know lots of people are thinking about it. I know lots of people are really questioning their political future, and it's a big decision. It's a very hard decision to leave what you've always known, to leave the people that you've worked with for years, to leave your friends. But I just think sometimes you've got to, be bold, be brave, make a choice that you believe is for the betterment of the country.
Yeah. Well, it's a fascinating time, I think, to be in politics. So let's see where it all leads. But there's an awful lot of optimism, I think, in the reform movement. I mean, Kevin Hollyoake was trying his best there to say that they're very optimistic at the Tory party conference. But from what I'm told from the people that are up there, it's a pretty grim scene.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard the same. I've heard the same about, less people attending, empty rooms. You see from the main stage, because those are televised, how many empty seats there's been at those events. But, I think you're right, that is one of the big differences between not only the people within the party, but what people want, actually. I think, a lot of people are looking around, they're looking around at our country and how it's changed, and they want to see hope, and they want to see aspiration, and they want to see energy, and they want to see an appetite to actually be able to bring that change forward. Is there that enthusiasm still in the Conservative Party? I clearly haven't been at conference this week, but it seems to me I can see where the enthusiasm is, and I can see that it's definitely in the Reform Party.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we wish you luck, Councillor Caroline Clapper. Thank you very much indeed for talking to us. I'm sure we'll talk again. She's defected to Reform UK in Hertfordshire County Council, where she was the Watling division, was a Conservative, now a Reform councillor, one of 22 people who went the other way yesterday and decided to defect to Reform. Let's get a voice note from Maddie on Generic.
Morning, Mike. This is Maddie calling in from Essex. When I was a young teenager about 40 years ago, I was with my parents driving through Bradford, and I noticed that there were certain areas where all the women were covered up, and it did leave an indelible mark on me, because I felt very oppressed and depressed witnessing that scene just as a young child. So Robert Jenrick needs to realise that this realisation of ghettoisations is something that's been going on in this country for years and has been ignored by consecutive governments for years as well. Thank you.
Maddie, very good to hear from you. Thanks very much indeed. This from Gary, who says, Mike, I'm 66. I voted in every general election since I was eligible, and I've always voted Conservative, but I will not be voting Conservative again until I have seen Reform have at least one crack at government. And every Conservative voter I know thinks the same way. That is what the Conservatives are up against and why they face a virtual wipeout in 2029. I think so. Paul says this, I admire the Conservatives promising the world when very recent experiences are very fresh in the memory and knowing they are very likely finished. And one from Ian, who says, Kevin Hollingrake has become a hypocrite. They copy Reform's policies and then say Reform has no substance. Do they think we are stupid? Well, that's a very good question. And I think that's part of the problem. The Conservatives and the Labour government all think that they have the God-given right to get your vote. And they don't anymore, because now there's a valid alternative called the Reform Party. And a lot of people are going there because, for want of any other reason, they just think it's time to give somebody else a go. 28 minutes past 9.
I remember my little girl, she was 14 at the time, screaming that she's seeing her brother being abducted over the Instagram. He was barefoot, he didn't have his glasses on. Hamas terrorists were all around him, beating him up. As a mother, to see your son in this position, and you can't do anything to help him. The camera was so close to his face that you can see that his mouth was so dry that he was terrified.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 9:32. I don't know where the time has gone. A bit of breaking news. Hamas have apparently exchanged hostage and prisoner lists under Trump's latest ceasefire plan. This, of course, would be the plan to release all the hostages, all 48 of them, 20 or so believed to be still alive. They'd also have to release people who have died. And also, of course, many of the Palestinian prisoners that Israel have in their jails would also be released back into Palestine. And that would include many of the ringleaders of the first attack on October the 7th in 2023. Steve in London says, I was a Tory voter for 38 years, never again. They repeatedly ignored clear messages from the electorate over 14 years. They gave us this Labour government. They have not adequately apologised for this mess. They are still chock full of Lib Dems, including cleverly promoted by Badenoch. Reform is the only hope and the only solution. And Jeff says, Keir Starmer's in India with how many university reps? This will be another trade-off for a deal where we have to take thousands more Indian students who overstay and work illegally. We've seen it before. It's an industrial-scale scam and benefits India only. Well, I mean, if there's any negotiating to be done, you can guarantee that Keir Starmer will be on the rough end of it, because he's about as good at negotiating as he is speaking. Welcome to BA flight 100 heading to Mumbai today. We will be serving you a version of codswallop and complete rubbish throughout the flight. Thank you very much indeed. Please put your head in the crash position. Good night. Let's talk to Catherine Porter, independent energy analyst. Catherine, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good to see you. I'm looking at some stories here to talk to you about. Renewables overtake coal as the world's biggest source of electricity. Can that be true?
Well, I mean, I have my doubts.
I do as well, especially since it's on the BBC.
Well, so they're referencing a report that was produced by Ember, which is the company that was behind the £300 reduction on bills claims. So, we can reserve judgment on that, I suppose. If you look at what's happened in Europe this year, we've seen wind output down 8%, hydro output down 14%, and gas generation, so gas consumption for electricity generation has had to go up 17% to compensate for this. Right. We can see China still building coal power stations at a phenomenal rate. So I think this is, selective reporting here.
Yeah, but unfortunately, it's like everything now, isn't it? You have to kind of be really, really careful to check exactly what the source is, to check exactly who's saying what. I saw a thing the other day about Sadiq Khan saying that, they closed off Oxford Street for a Sunday afternoon a couple of weeks ago, and they put out a report that said, it looks as though the shops are all welcoming it because they all took more money than they would normally on a regular Sunday. And then you see the people that are saying it, and they're all people who are part of the project. They're not actually people who are independent, shops at all. There's no particular shop in Oxford Street saying we took more money than we took before because it was pedestrianised. It's all from this kind of Quango group called, London Business or something like that, or Business London, which is funded partly by the Mayor's office.
Yeah, I mean, I've just literally been having some discussions with people on Twitter, or X, I suppose we should call it now, where... they're saying, renewable fossil fuels get subsidies. And then they say, the fact that we only pay for 5% VAT on our electricity bills is a sign of subsidies to fossil fuels. We pay 5% VAT on our electricity bills, and that refers to every type of generation. So renewables and nuclear, biomass, everything is all 5% VAT on bills. That's not a specific subsidy to fossil fuels.
Right.
And then they talk about, CapEx relief. Well, CapEx relief is available across the economy. And this is not a specific subsidy. It's only renewables that are getting a cash subsidy to be built.
And we also pay another subsidy for all the renewable stuff and all the green energy that we supposedly create, because there's a very little spoken about hidden asset that they have in the electricity bill, which is the standing charge, which keeps going up and nobody knows why.
Yeah, so when it's because of the low energy density of renewables and the intermittency. So both of those things are paid for through network charges, and that is shown in the standing charge components of the bill. So if you have a generation that is you need lots of individual little units. So if I want to have an 800 megawatt gas plants. That's about, a decent-sized gas power station. The equivalent amount of capacity would be 60 wind turbines.
Right.
So that you connect your one gas power station, one set of wires, then you need 60 sets of wires for the wind, but they only work a third of the time. So to give you the equivalent amount of electricity over the year, you need 150 or so of them. So it's 150 times more wires, and those wires tend to be longer because this stuff is being built in the sea, and obviously there's no existing infrastructure. Then you have the fact that, the weather's making it vary moment to moment, and so balancing the grid in real time becomes more expensive. And this is adding billions of pounds a year to our bills. And they're all hidden costs of renewables. You have to also include the costs of backup. In the next few days, we're going to have another period where so we've got 32,000 megawatts of wind capacity now connected, and it's going to go down to about 200 megawatts of output, so a tiny fraction. In fact, I had a funny conversation with Grok about this and said, if everybody in Britain went and blew into a wind turbine, how much electricity would we generate? And it was about the same, 200 megawatts. So, you can just see how pointless this can be at times. Functionally nothing, and yet we're spending billions of pounds to build these things.
Right, and yet Ed Miliband still exists. He's still there, sitting in the sort of Secretary of State for Green Energy, or Net Zero, and the rest of it. They're all tootling off to Brazil shortly, I think, for the next COP30, is it? That they're all going to, where they've cleared a huge tranche of the Amazon rainforest in order to build a super highway to get them all from the airport into the VIP sort of lounges where they can talk about saving energy. It's all just continuing around us. We don't seem to be able to stop them.
Well, I think he's going to be in big trouble next year because the expectation is that gas prices will return to their long-term average before the crisis. By the end of this year, there'll be enough new LNG to fully displace Russian gas. And then next year, the global gas market's expected to go into length. So that means there'll be more production than demand, and that will really depress prices. So his whole argument about having to get off gas because it's expensive will be completely blown out of the water. At the same time, he's now supposed to be imminently announcing the results of the latest renewable subsidy auction that is expected to be far higher than the previous ones. And it's going to be very interesting to see whether he actually can get that done, because I have real doubts that Keir Starmer is going to let him sign contracts that are materially more expensive than gas. And it will be deeply unpopular, obviously going in exactly the opposite direction to the £300 that they claimed that has yet to materialise. Miliband now says that will be by 2029, so effectively by the end of the Parliament rather than any time soon. But, the only reason that we could potentially see that reduction, ironically, is because gas prices are falling.
Yeah, unbelievable stuff. And then finally, just one thing that I saw you tweeting about, the Met Office, pretty much all but admitting that they make up some of their weather forecasts, and they make up some of their temperature data around the country because they've closed so many weather stations that they don't actually have any real way of measuring it.
Yes, that's right. They've closed a lot of weather stations, and then they say that they interpolate from other weather stations that are nearby, and then various people have gone around to investigate this and discovered that there are no weather stations nearby. And so they've had to remove data because people have basically said you're making it up. And they have been. And the other thing is that some of these weather stations that do exist produce junk data. There's one, I think, in Regent's Park or St James's Park, one of the London parks, where the equipment is surrounded by a concrete wall and right next to a diesel generator. So obviously there's a huge amount of heat being both created in that little space and contained by this wall. And obviously that equipment is going to record higher temperatures than it would on the other side of the wall. And so that's going to distort the results. So, yeah, I mean, we can only use data that are available. But if people are making the data up or using what's obviously junk data, you shouldn't use a weather station that's in such a compromised position. And then they will say, oh, well, it's so much hotter than it was in the past. Well, you can't say that if you made up the numbers.
No, exactly. I mean, that's a pretty much peak net zero, that, isn't it? Just make stuff up and tell you that it's scientifically collected, tell you that it's proper data, and just hope that everybody believes you. Extraordinary. Catherine, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Catherine Porter there, independent energy analyst. You're seeing pictures there, by the way, as we speak, of Keir Starmer visiting Bollywood. That's over in Mumbai, the Hindi film business, which is a huge industry, which involves recording loads and loads of... I mean, they make films quicker than anybody else in the entire world. They're literally churning them out by the week, and they create huge stars, and they're watched by absolutely gazillions of people in India and around the world. Absolutely fabulous business that is running. I'll tell you what they don't want to do is get anywhere near Keir Starmer. They'll probably start taxing it. They've only got Rachel Reeves with him. They'll probably start taxing Bollywood, and that'll be the end of that. It's 9:42.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 9:45. I'm Mike Graham. Dino says this. Robert Jenner is absolutely right in what he said about Birmingham. I work in Sparkbrook. Thankfully, I don't live here, but it's a total slum. It's 95% populated by Muslims. There's rubbish everywhere, and that's not just down to the bin strikes. It was like that before. I go home at about 2 p.m. in the afternoon. I wouldn't want to be here after that, as I wouldn't feel safe. It's absolutely disgusting. And this from Alan in Middlesbrough. If I was on that BA flight to Mumbai and suddenly Starmer started talking from the cockpit, giving his anti-Midas touch, it would make me feel extremely nervous, convinced the flight was doomed. I mean, he does have that effect on people, doesn't he? It just makes you feel kind of like, ooh, crikey, that's not good. Let's have a look at what's on the front page of The Sun this morning, because the headline says, Car-ching. And we're going to talk to Stuart Masson now, editorial director of The Car Expert, because millions of drivers who unwittingly paid commission on dodgy car deals can maybe claim back an average of £700 per person. Let's find out how. Stuart, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. How you doing?
Yeah, not bad at all. They're calling this the sort of the PIP recovery on wheels, which I suppose is the size of it, right? PPI on wheels, it says in the inside. 40 million deals set for compensation. Tell us, can you sum it all up for us in a nutshell? What's it all about?
Yeah, the Financial Conduct Authority, the government's financial regulator, has basically decided that more than about 44%, so nearly half of all car finance deals between 2007 and end of 2024 were unfair in one way or another, and as a result, about 14 million contracts are going to be eligible for some form of compensation, hundreds of pounds rather than thousands of pounds. But some people will potentially have multiple contracts that are eligible because they've had multiple cars over the years. But it's quite a staggering claim that nearly half of all car finance contracts have been unfair in some way.
Right. And so were they unfair because of how much money they were charging in interest, or were they unfair because of the conditions that they put on people? Why were they unfair?
All of the above. The FCA has said there are three areas that were potentially unfair. One was what were called discretionary commission arrangements. That was where the dealer had the facility to ratchet up the interest rate that you were paying over and above what the bank had already approved. So that's a big one, and that's a fairly straightforward one. The second category was where the interest rates and the commission that was payable to the dealership by the lender was simply far too high for the amount of money being borrowed, particularly with customers where they didn't necessarily have a lot of choice. They were subprime, they didn't really have a lot of financial options, and they were being taken advantage of. And the third case was where the lenders and the brokers or the dealership had an exclusive arrangement, and that wasn't being clearly disclosed to the customers, that the only deal that was being offered on the table was the deal that was an exclusive one. So there is a range of conditions.
Okay, and how do you find out if you're eligible for any of these payouts?
The FCA has put the responsibility firmly on the lenders to follow up with the customers. Okay. So it will be up to the lenders to contact the customers. Now, obviously, some of these go back 18 years, so it may well be that they don't have your details. So if you've had a car loan and you think you may be eligible, all of the car finance companies will have information on their websites where you can log your details and register a claim, and they'll get in touch with you.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So that's the best way to do it, is just through the website of the individual car companies themselves, not the finance companies.
That's no, it's the car finance company, so the company that lent you the money. Okay. So you need, if you've got your details and you've got your contract, you can check that. But the difficulty will be that some of these go back to 2007. A lot of the lenders don't have the details anymore, and a lot of the customers won't have the details anymore.
No, that's right. I mean, for people who lease cars, is that the same deal, or is it just for people who bought them?
No, leasing is a separate issue. So these are people who took out car finance to buy a car.
To actually buy it,
That's correct. So it would be on a hire purchase or a PCP, personal contract purchase type agreement. So that's the majority of new car private purchases, and about half of all used car private purchases these days.
Okay. Well, very well summed up. Thank you, Stuart. That should help lots of people to see if they can get their hands on some filthy lucre coming up to Christmas. It's no bad thing. 700 quid probably coming quite handy, it would seem. It's coming up to 10 minutes to 10. This one from Steve. He says, why is it okay that something can be described as disgustingly white, like it was problematic that the England women's team was predominantly white, yet if people like generic state of fact, it's racist? Yeah. Well, it's a good question, Steve. I don't know the answer to that, but you know the answer to it. Of course you do. This is Talk. Hello, Jezza.
You all right?
I'm good.
Yeah,
What are you
did you
doing?
drink?
I've had my drink.
Well, I've been running around.
I'm ready now.
I'm sure you are.
Should
right.
we start the show?
No, we can't. Saturday the 15th of November, here's a promise. You will not have seen anything like it. You will get honesty, you will get authenticity, and if we get our way, you might even get a cram in at the top. 3-tier World of Common Sense with Mike Graham.
And Jeremy Kyle.
In that order.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. Coming up to very nearly 5 minutes till 10. And, of course, it's time for Julie Hartley-Brewer. She'll be here taking you through until 1 o'clock. Morning, Mike. The police in Germany and France banned the pro-Palestinian protest yesterday as well. Also, Germany hasn't recognised Palestine as a state either. Yeah, I know. Amazing, isn't it? Coming up, of course, every single night here at 10 o'clock on Talk is Harry Cole Saves the West. You can get it on YouTube, of course, as well, anytime you like. Last night, he was asking, is the British Museum at war with itself after the British Museum released a poem to mark National Poetry Day, in which it talks about chavs and housewives, had a go at them, basically, for caring about small boats. Big diatribe against pillaging and enslaving. Let's have a look at what was going on.
There's foreigners falling from the sky, come to scrub our toilets and rob us blind. They brandish brooms, bog brushes and bricks. There ain't no problem they can't fix. We must defend. We must resist. This country's ours. We must persist to man our beaches, line our streets and fight them back into the sea. This tiny little island fair. Load up the cannons with boiling gravy and gammon, lob sausage rolls till they flee for the channel, send in the chavs on their BMX bikes, then posh city bankers shooting spitballs from pipes as housewives manoeuvre great big Henry Hoovers. Church bells ring out, cry Godspeed, hallelujah.
Yeah, it's so good, isn't it? Yeah, it's really, really down to the kids, man. Yeah, really great. Let's see what Lord Vasey had to say about it.
I guess what I might say in the defence of the British Museum, which is why you've asked me onto the show, is to say that the British Museum is a great classical institution, and it's been around since the mid-18th century. And it's a big, Greek-style Palladian building. It's quite intimidating. And people like you and me tend to be the people who go and see things in the British Museum. But the British Museum needs to reach out to different people.
Yeah, well, who's he reaching out to there? Some, sort of faux cockney trying to make out that he's a lover of all things foreign, because somehow that makes him politically correct. It's rubbish, isn't it? Absolute cobblers. Harry also spoke to a bloke called Art Arthur, who's the man who drafted the ICE plan for Donald Trump, and he said he's astounded that Britain doesn't have its own deportation force right here on the streets of Britain.
I'm a little astounded that the United Kingdom doesn't have a similar law enforcement agency. I assume that you probably have plenty of people working for Inland Revenue that are collecting taxes. As important as it is to collect taxes, it's as important to enforce your immigration laws. Without immigration enforcement, you don't have sovereignty, you don't have borders, and you don't have a nation.
Yeah, you don't have borders, you don't have a nation. A nation without borders is not worth really calling a nation, is it? I mean, we've said that before. Vincent says this from North Yorkshire. Morning, Mike. Imagine being on that flight and hearing Keith on the tannoy from the cockpit. I'd be asking the cabin crew for a parachute. Great show. I know, because everything he touches just goes wrong, doesn't it? I mean, he's out there in Bollywood. The Bollywood entire film industry in India is probably going to collapse now because they've been paid a visit by Keir Starmer. That'll be the end of their money-making enterprise. There we are. Anyway, listen, it's nearly time for the end of the show. Well, it is the end of the show, actually. Julia Hartley-Brewer's here. Very good morning.
Time for the end of the show.
It's time for the end of the show.
It's well-known lingo in the business.
Yes, it is. It's time, after all. How are you?
I'm all right. I'm glad yesterday's over and the horrors of these demonstrations. There'll be more to come and all that. I'm totally and utterly befuddled by this China spy case.
Yeah.
I mean, the former Director of Public Prosecutions, who's now the Prime Minister, is basically being accused of lying by the current Deputy
and
Director of Public
obfuscating and stopping them from getting information that they need for the prosecution.
Why doesn't and didn't everyone think that China was an enemy state? There are often clues.
And why can't we call them that?
Yeah, I'm not joking, I'm genuinely worried that we have a treasonous government.
Yeah.
They're blaming the last Tory government. I think far too many people in the main parties are beholden to the Chinese, our universities. You know, I mean, we have a very, very big issue in this country.
We do.
And we need to get to grips with it.
Well,
we need a really, really just big general wake-up.
Yes.
To what the hell is going on in this country.
A kind of a clean-up would be good. Like shove a vacuum cleaner in and just suck all the bad stuff out and start again.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're told, if you've got a Chinese electric car, you don't park it anywhere near a Department of Defence facility because it can spy on it. I mean why are we even letting them into the country then?
I just find it utterly perplexing.
You know, why would you let
Why is TikTok allowed to operate in this country? Genuinely, I find it absolutely extraordinary, the whole thing. We've got to have a wake-up call. We've also got Tory leader Kimmy Babe, not big speech. You know, will she survive to make another one next year? That's the question.
I don't think so.
Those May elections not looking good. Not going to have a pact with reform, she says. Reform